Ta-da. this committee of the whole meeting to order at 5:35 p.m. Please call the roll.
Ms. Pearson?
Present.
Mr. Rollins? Ms. McCall? Mrs. McCulloch?
Here.
Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Ms. Haley?
Here.
Ms. Stanford?
Here.
With 5 present, 2 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's take a moment for the Pledge of Allegiance, preceded by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go any further, thank you, Kathy Bayer-Eberly. She's working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast via YouTube live stream and Comcast Channel 20. I also wish to welcome Superintendent Student Advisory Council Representative Aisha Nizamuddin. Close. I have 2 more tries to get it even better. So thank you for being here. And you're here from Auburn High School. You'll be with us tonight in the other 2 meetings in March, and we'll have you at the final meeting tell us what you thought of it all, basically, and give us your perspective. So thank you. As we have presentations, I want to remind everybody that we try to hold our questions till the end of the presentation. The first item on the agenda is the meeting minutes. If you've had a chance to look at those, are there any changes, corrections, additions? If not, can I have a consensus to approve? Thumbs? Yes? Kim? Okay. June, thank you. Ms. Pearson, I will give you the floor to lead the Internal External Stakeholders Committee.
Thank you very much. Tonight's stakeholder deck begins with a 12-month agenda. As you can see, our feature presentation from March is the Rockford University Pathway. At this time, we will give the floor to Jason Pope, RPS 205, Director of Recruitment, Dr. Reed, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Dr. Reed may have stepped out.
Hello, thank you. I do believe I had a presentation too. Is it able to be loaded? Yeah. And then Kathy, the clicker is not working. You're not silly. There you go. Thank you. All right. Together we make a whole. All right. Thank you for having us today. I just want to spend a few minutes to kind of send a little bit of a recap on our Rockford University education pathway, look at the cohorts that we've had graduate and the cohorts that we currently still have in process, as well as look at a little school history data, some demographics, some of our licensure, a little bit of our academic return on investment, and then a look ahead on what we expect to see in this program moving forward. And it is not working again. There we go. All right, so as we look at cohorts 1 and 2 are effectively complete. Those students have finished the program. When we look at the first 2 cohorts, we had a total of 26 students that entered the Rockford Education Pathway cohort model at Rockford University starting in 2017. 14 of those students have completed that program and earned their teaching license. Of those 14, we currently have 12 that are teaching in our district in certified teaching positions, including 3 in math, and one of those teachers is actually a bilingual math and science teacher at RISA. We have 1 student that did graduate the program with an art degree, was not able to get a position at Rockford Public Schools last year because we just didn't have a vacancy. We did work with her quite a bit. She did take a position at one of the private schools in the city, but is planning to come back to the district this coming school year. She really does want to be at RPS 205. And then we have 1 student that's graduation was delayed into this fall. He just graduated in December and will be looking for teaching positions in this coming 23-24 school year. As we look at our cohorts that are currently in process, cohorts 3 through 6, we have a total of about 69 students in that program. We did have 2 that were running start graduates that actually graduated after their junior year, and both of those students were hired for teaching positions in Rockford Public Schools this year for the 22-23 school year. Currently, we have 49 students on track to graduate, with a good percentage of those students preparing to student teach in the coming 23-24 school year. Roughly about 20 of those 49 will be student teaching this coming fall and spring. So we will, after next school year, we will see a huge return on this investment, with many of those students getting ready to enter certified teaching positions in our district. And then we look at those 2 that were hired early. We have 1 in bilingual CCR and 1 in middle school ELA. So a little breakdown of the history of our schools, the high schools that produce students for this program. Looking in Auburn, we've had 14 students come through the program to date. I think we have some unexplored growth at Auburn. When we look at our CAPA and gifted programs, I think those are programs where we could definitely leverage more students and get some more interest into our education pathway. At Auburn specifically, we do need buy-in from all. I am happy to report that Ryan Knockreiner, one of the new assistant principals at Auburn, has kind of championed this program this year and has been an excellent partner, has got Dr. Reed, myself, and our team out in front of quite a few students this year to talk about it. So I think with his continued leadership in the building, we will see this program really start to take off at Auburn. And if we can get into some of those other academies at Auburn, I think we can see some really good growth there. East and Guilford have both been consistent performers year over year, consistently producing the most amount of students into this program. Guilford has had continued leadership in this program from day one, with Grant Mason being the educational psychology teacher in the school and really leading this program from his lens. And then Alan Nolan was a longtime teacher at East. We did lose him to another district this year, but Richard Hacker is a teacher that stepped into that role and is driving really good results at East. And this year, for the coming cohort 7, we anticipate East actually producing the most amount of students for the new cohort. So really excited to see the success Rich is having in his first year. You'll see Jefferson is fairly close to East and Guilford, but most of their growth did come in cohort 6. So last year was Nicole Frazier's first year leading this program at Jefferson. Nicole is doing some amazing things with her students in Jefferson, and we really want to replicate what she's doing across the district. She's driving a lot of success last year and this year, but most of her growth did come last year with 10 students in the program. And then Roosevelt had their first ever students enter the education pathway last year, and we have 2 students that will be joining the program from Roosevelt this year. So happy to see the continued success they're having, and Scott Seavey, the academy coach in that building, has plans to continue to build out that program, as well as partnering these education pathway students at Roosevelt with opportunities to earn their para license as they graduate and start working in the district right away. Looking at a little bit of the diversity data as we look at the program as a whole, historically we are about 50% white versus all of our other ethnicities, with the Hispanic ethnicity being the largest growing population. Based on trends that we've seen over the last 2 years, we do anticipate to see the Hispanic student population continue to grow and probably take over the white population. I would estimate in the next 2 to 3 years, and we should see the total diversity of the program move to about a 70-30 split over the next year or two. And then when we look at the male-female data, we are roughly about 70% female and 30% male as we look across the data from all 6 cohorts. Program licensure, what I really want you to take out of this slide is Rockford University over the last 2 years specifically, when we look at cohorts 4 through 6, have done a really good job of making sure that participants in the program are earning dual licensure. So not only are they earning their primary endorsement, whether that's elementary education, early childhood, math, but they're specifically, when we look at cohorts 4 through 6, are really adding in those additional endorsements. So more than half of our students that are still currently in the program will be graduating with an additional ESL, bilingual, or SPED endorsement as well, which really allows us to fill quite a few more teaching positions over the coming years and continue to strengthen our bench. So lastly, just kind of a look ahead at where we're headed. So in June, the Rockford University contract went to board and was approved for another 3 years. In that contract, we did create some new flexibility to increase our cohorts each year. So any year that we don't hit 20 students, Rockford University has allowed us to make some of that difference up the following year. So we will see cohorts that exceed 20 students in the coming years. I'm happy to report that for cohort 7, I actually got confirmation today from Dr. Quinn at Rockford University that they will accept all 26 students that have applied. So we anticipate a full cohort of well over a full cohort, 26 students starting this fall. I don't have my glasses, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time seeing some of this text. One thing we want to do as we move forward is, as we've had success with our Urban Ed program through Rockford University, we want to start to partner our Urban Ed graduate teachers that are currently working in our district with our pathway students as they conduct their clinical and student teaching hours as a way to really leverage those 2 programs together and really continue to increase and strengthen our bench strength. So starting this fall, we will be putting Rockford University pathway students in classrooms with our Urban Ed graduates to really build on those 2 programs. One thing that we have, as we've dug into this data over the last year, one thing that we've really recognized is the program is failing our African American students. So when we look at the history of our African American students that are in the program, roughly about 65% of them are failing their classes and withdrawing from the university. As we worked with the university to identify what is causing this, the number one reason that they've been able to identify is the majority of our African American students that are in the education pathway do not live on campus, as where the majority of the other pathway students are living on campus. With them not living on campus, they're not able to fully immerse themselves in the cohort experience and take advantage of a lot of the supports that Rockford University has to offer. So one thing that we've done to try to combat this is, actually today I submitted an earmark request to Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth requesting additional federal funds that will allow us to provide housing for our African American candidates that are in the program, which should help offset some of that financial burden that they're not able to tackle as they enter this program and keep them on campus so we can help them be more successful in the program. We also anticipate being able to use a little bit of that earmark money to offset some of the additional tuition costs that these students face. So when they graduate from the program, they can ideally graduate with 0 college debt. I've been working with the communication department over the last year. We really want to build a very robust communication plan to really engage parents in the communities around the RU pathway and the success that we've had to really try to drive more engagement in our schools, specifically around our parents, who really are sometimes the gatekeeper for many of our students. Many times, if we can get the parents on board with this program, we can get students to apply in larger numbers. We really want to drive some engagement outside of the Service Academy. So when we look at historically at this program, the majority of students have come within the education pathway in our Service Academy. I think we're missing a large area there of students throughout our entire high school system. So this year we've really started to engage freshmen and sophomores and asking teachers in our building to identify those students that could be great future teachers and start to connect them with our team so we can start those interventions earlier. And one one of the last things we would like to do is create a Pathway Ambassador program. Now that we have Pathway graduates in our schools working as teachers, I want to create a stipend opportunity where those individuals can be working in our high schools as a second point of contact for the Pathway program, engaging students, engaging parents, and working with our team to really drive the number of applicants that we have in our school and help those students be successful when they get to RPS. So. Last thing, as I'd mentioned, we do anticipate well over a full cohort of 26 students for this coming school year with a fairly diverse student population, and actually 10 males will be in the program for cohort 7, which is the largest number of male student teachers that we've ever had for this program. So, any questions I can answer? All right, thank you very much.
Yes, yes. Please.
One question.
Yes.
You mentioned Ms. Frazier at Jefferson, that you were trying to replicate what she's doing. What exactly is it that she's doing so well?
So her level of engagement in this program is extremely high. She starts the year by inviting our team into her classroom. So my team is usually the one responsible for engaging students around the application and making sure they complete all steps of it. But we are not in school buildings every day working with these students. So she does a really good job of incorporating our team from day one, inviting us out routinely to work with the students, work with them on their essays, have them involved in the interview process as we go through the different steps. And then parts of our application process she's embedded into her class. That way students, part of the application process is an essay and letters of recommendation, which many of our students often do struggle with or find barriers to. So she's actually incorporated that as assignments in her class, and she works on that with them the entire first semester. So when the application window rolls around, every student or class has their essay and their letter of recommendations ready to be submitted when they're due. As well as just really engaging her students around the profession of being a teacher. So really making sure the structure in her class is aligned with getting students excited about the career and really giving them opportunities throughout different buildings in our district to see what education is like from the teacher lens as well. Yeah. Any other questions?
Sure. First of all, this slide deck is it's not attached. Can somebody put it in board docs for us so that if we want to look at it, at least it's not under stakeholders. Would I find it somewhere else?
I've emailed and asked for the attachment so that we can have it.
Please, thank you. Number 2, so that everybody is on board and understands, because I don't know that everybody knows what the pathway is. We've just talked about where we're at with it right now. Briefly, what grade do the students start in high school? And you just said they're going to try to start earlier. What is the application process? And what is the number that we have percentage who apply, receive or enter into the pathway? And then a little bit about, this is $5,000 a year for the students, right? And and just the funding that we as a board have approved for it, I think would be helpful, because we do have some new board members.
Yep. So the education pathway, what this does is students that are selected in this program receive a significantly reduced tuition rate, which is locked in for 5 years. So typically tuition at Rockford University is about $40,000 a year. Students that are selected in the education pathway actually have their tuition locked in at $10,000 a year. And then students with a high financial need based on their FAFSA application have their tuition reduced down further to $5,000 a year. So the majority of our students will go to Rockford University at $5,000 a year, which is a significant tuition reduction. Along that, they also receive additional cohort support and support throughout our district to help them become a certified teacher. Students that are selected in this program are on a pathway to become a licensed teacher, and then they get preferred placement with the district and opportunity for a free master's degree after they graduate. As far as application, this year and last year, we will be able to accept 100% of the students that apply, complete all steps of the application, and are admitted into Rockford University. So this year it'll be 26 students. A handful of those students are still pending acceptance into Rockford University, but they have all of their application materials completed. Last year, it was 25 students that we had accepted, 25 or 26. It was around that same number. Years previously, we've only filled a full cohort of 21 time.
Okay, and then just to be clear, because they're paying their own $5,000 or $10,000, whatever their copay is, there is no consequence if they drop out. There is nothing that they, and even if they complete it, they don't have to come back to our district, correct?
Correct. There is no, to complete the traditional program, there's no commitment to the district. I will do everything in my power to make sure they come work at RPS 205, and we have a great retention rate with the students that have completed, but they're not required to come back with the exception of once they take advantage of the master's program. So graduates are automatically accepted into the Urban Ed program if they apply, but acceptance into the Urban Ed program does require an additional 3-year commitment to the district.
And we don't offset the money for tuition with any district money, correct? This is just a reduction by Rockford University.
Correct.
And so what is our district's, what is it that we have invested on an annual basis financially?
So in agreement with Rockford University for them to offer the tuition reduction, we then fund 20 Urban Ed master's degrees each year for our certified staff. That cost is about $475,000.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's, it's a great program, but there's a lot to it. And the cutoff for Rockford University, are they a 3.2 or something to?
2.5.
They're at 2.5.
2.5, but they actually do a really good job of if we have a student that doesn't meet the 2.5 requirement, they look at them as a whole and not just their GPA. We've had many students that haven't met that 2.5 requirement, but have showed academic progress over their junior and senior year, who maybe freshman year didn't start out really great, but junior and senior year have really improved their grades, have been able to acquire support and letters of recommendation from staff inside the building, and Rockford University has given those students an opportunity to be a part of this program.
Last question, I swear. The money that you have submitted, Durbin, Duckworth, earmarked for housing, can any of the students of a cohort apply, or will that be purely for the Black students?
So I think our intent would be to start with our African American students because those are the ones that unfortunately at a greater rate are not succeeding in this program, and we need to create a system to help them be successful. But ultimately we would look at all students that needed an opportunity for housing.
And that's legal?
What's?
Yes, it's legal that everyone should be able to apply to support.
That's not what he's saying. Okay.
No, that is.
Am I missing it?
Yes, I believe he indicated that they would be targeting African American students for additional support, but it would be open to everyone to apply and receive consideration.
Yes.
That's what I'm here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Was there any research done prior to launching this on how effective students are on campus versus off campus? And prior to dropout, was there any intervention even on that level in trying to help them stay on track?
So in discussions with Rockford University, they, at the university level, because once they enter the pathway, they become Rockford University students. On their end, they have been putting together interventions to help all students within that pathway. As far as looking at any data that correlates between staying on campus and not being on campus, I'm not aware of, but I'm happy to reach out to the university and find out if they've done any studies on that and share that with you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And lastly, Ms. McCulloch already brought it to our attention, but this type of information is really good to have on the front end prior to coming to the meeting and being presented, because it's easier to identify areas as we work together to try to make this to be a successful program.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Reed, was that a part of yours as well? Thank you very much. Okay, so if you're looking for a good cup of coffee and a chance to view some of RPS student artwork, all in one location, you're in luck. The artwork of Lincoln and Risa students is currently on display at Rockford Roasting Company until May. An opening reception was held on Friday, February 17th, and was well attended by our students, their family, and friends. Rockford East swimmer Camden Taylor has accomplished an unbelievable feat. Not only is he a state champion, winning 100-yard freestyle 2 weekends ago, he also broke every NIC 10 conference swimming record. We will take a closer look at his accomplishments and congratulate him in person at the upcoming board meeting. Congratulations, Camden. In February, RPS 205 high school students had the opportunity to shadow local professionals whose work aligned with Production Academy. The Production Academy is for students interested in building structures, working with tools, transportation, fixing things, working with their hands, and building on product design. Pathways within the Production Academy include construction, engineering, industrial technology, fabrication, automotive, and manufacturing. Thank you to the businesses listed here for hosting our students. None of this would have been possible without their support. Thank you for investing in all of our students' future. Our featured broadcast this month, Random Acts of Kindness Day at Froberg Elementary. 24 superstars, kindergartners created a positive note to pass out along with a sweet treat in the hallway of Froberg. They learned a valuable lesson about kindness. As a reminder, visit 205 Vibe on the RPS website for the latest podcast, and district news. On Wednesday, February 22nd, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton were in Rockford as part of the Smart Start Illinois tour. The campaign is part of Pritzker's plan for historic investment in early childhood education for the proposed fiscal year 24 budget. A press conference was held at Nashholt Early Childhood Center. Speakers included Governor Pritzker, Lieutenant Governor Stratton, Mayor McNamara, Superintendent Aaron Jarrett, Nashholt Principal Desi Ritzel, teacher Anika Voss, and parent, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Manaski Gupta. I hate messing up names. Thank you to the board members and staff who attended this event. Also remember to save the date, Monday, May 1st, for the annual legislative meeting. We will provide more information in the coming months. At this time, we will turn the floor over to Mr. Dotson and Superintendent Jarrett for listening tours.
Could I ask a quick question? So I have in my calendar that we had one in March. We're not doing that legislative luncheon. Has that been canceled?
Yes, May 1st.
Okay. And also when she was going through there, ours for the 205 Vibe said top to be announced, to be determined, whatever?
Yes.
Do you have that? Because I didn't see that on there.
That was she just mentioned it in the Froberg blog.
So the Froberg blog post is the top,
Yes,
not
ma'am.
TBD. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just a quick update on the listening tours that Dr. Jarrett and I have been engaged in now for the past, 11 years? We've had many iterations of our school visits, but I think the latest version is the one we kind of both enjoy the most, whereas Dr. Jarrett spends time with the principal, visiting, sharing information, receiving information, visits classrooms. I spend my time with more in-depth conversations with our staff and other people in the building. Every Monday, I share my notes and thoughts that are shared with me that I really appreciate that our staff shares with me, with our entire leadership team. And I can tell you, I really love my job, but I must say, this is my why, and this is what I definitely enjoy the most, is being in the buildings where the student and staff are, where the action is. So looking forward to continuing that. I don't know, Dr. Jarrett, if you wanted to add anything to that, sir? All right. Thank you. Back to you, Ms. Pearson.
Thank you. Now on to community partnerships. 2 events were attended by board members and staff in February. A discussion focused on youth violence hosted by the League of Women Voters and the Black Winter Scholarship Fundraiser, a partnership between the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois.
Let's go right here. Right here. There you
go. My apologies. I do apologize. I jumped ahead. Dr. Jarrett will give us an update on the progress in building stakeholders' calendar. My apologies. Go ahead.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, Ms. Pearson. The slide that says internal and external news outlines the steps of our upcoming process here, and on your table you have a handout that represents some of the work. So I want to walk you through where I hope our work will go to build out a listening and communication system so that this committee can become the mechanism we use to describe our work with working with the 6 stakeholder groups the board has identified. And just to review that, one group is our staff, which includes teachers and members of our different bargaining units and staff, principals, and district office. One group is our students. One group is our families. One group are our college and career readiness partners and business partners that help us with the development of career opportunities for our students. One is our government entities, local, state, and federal. And one are our community partnership groups. So altogether, there are 6 groups. And what I wanted to do today was share a very early draft of what this might look like. You can see there are anywhere between, in some of these categories, 15 or 16 established meeting systems that are already in place. Some have less, but all of them have a need to make sure that we are connected. So I wanted to share this early draft with the board and give you the opportunity to give us feedback over the next month or so. Then we'll move on to step number 2, which is to start to finalize an annual calendar. And then in our planning retreat in June, we will be able to make assignments going into the new school year with the new board in terms of who is going to cover what events. Some of these will be covered exclusively by staff. Some of them will be covered by a combination of staff and board members. And all of them are going to be important to engage in conversation. You'll notice there are 2 columns. One is for times and dates of existing opportunities for conversations. The other column says marketing and branding plans. So in addition to spending time talking and listening to the groups we've identified, we also want to make sure that our marketing and branding plans are directly aligned to those groups, so that not only are we coming to these conversations to learn from our partners and different groups in the community, but also that we have some things to share and celebrate and market to those groups as well. So April April would be the recommendations that this current board would make, and then we would probably finalize assignments with the new board in June. And I am also recommending, as part of step 3, that we add a 4th quarterly Saturday retreat. We currently have one planning retreat in June proposed, and this will come up in our planning agenda. We have 2 different performance monitoring retreats, one to talk about operations, the other to talk about our school performance and our system-wide framework. And what I think we are missing is the opportunity to get away in a retreat format and really dive into the efficacy of how we're doing at communicating with these different groups that the board has identified. And then ultimately in step 4, this committee, I hope, becomes the place where we have conversations about what we have learned from talking to these different groups once this is established, how we are marketing to these groups, and what gaps are existing in our community conversations so that we can add or subtract as needed. So I'm hopeful that you'll get the opportunity to review the handout and send me any suggestions about things that are missing. You'll notice there are lists of existing groups that have times, but there is one section I want to really highlight, and that's the work of Dr. Reed and his team in partnership with Maureen and the community team. They are in the process of building out a family listening system, a student listening system, and a staff listening system. And what that's going to look like is Dr. Reed and his team are going to ensure that every school has at least 1 per grade level student identified 4th and 5th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and 2 per grade level for high school, so that we can elevate student listening. This is not going to replace our student ambassador program, but this will go above and beyond our ambassador program, because we want to make sure that this is a truly representative sample of our students. We estimate all told that will mean that we'll have over 200 students involved and available for student listening work and student affinity spaces. That is the minimum. We certainly can add more if the opportunity presents itself, but that's where we're going to ask our principals to start. The second group that Dr. Reed is going to be building is a space for families. We are going to be asking all schools to start by the end of this school year with identifying 5 families per school, which would give us a total of 200 plus family members that we can utilize for conversations. And then finally, Dr. Reed is going to continue the multi-year work that we've done to build affinity spaces for staff members of color as well as school and district leaders of color. Those are 2 staffing groups we're going to identify. So in addition to the existing groups that you see on this chart, we also are going to be adding those new groups. And what I hope the board will be able to do as we put those in place throughout the course of the year is build some opportunities to have conversations with community partners. I think far too often our community conversations involve community partners telling us what our families and our students and at times what our staff think. What I would like to do, instead of sitting across the table with our community partners, I would like to sit around the table with our community partners and listen together to our students, our families, and at times our staff, and particularly our men and women of color. And so this work that Dr. Reed and his team are taking on is going to be a really important part of building this calendar out so that we not only strengthen our existing partnerships, but that we build much deeper partnerships with our families, students, and staff. So please take your time to ask any questions this evening, and moving forward, if you have any suggestions or if you see any gaps, we're going to be happy to bring that feedback back to our chairperson, Ms. Pearson, and bring a revised draft forward in our April board meeting. And we're going to keep making this better and better and better while Dr. Reed does his work to build out the groups that don't yet exist. And the goal will be that by June at our planning retreat, we will be committing to a calendar where staff and board members are committing to divvying up these opportunities and these listening sessions together so that this committee is strengthened as a place where we truly talk about our partnerships with all of these 6 groups, and also talk about how we market and brand to these 6 key groups that the board identified back in the February board meeting. So with that, I will open up the floor for any questions for Dr. Reed or for me.
I am going to say this effort is so important, and that we go beyond the boardroom. And I understand that for some of us, there will be a transition, and there will be other new board members joining me, and I understand that. And I certainly hope that we actually make a commitment to being present in our communities, and become more strategic in how we can get to that spot of and build trust and have healthy conversations. And sometimes we may not hear what we want to hear, but finding out what we can take from that conversation to build this effort. So one of the things I was thinking of, and I'll give more input on it as I communicate with Dr. Jarrett, is some community meetings and groups are already existing. And it is important for us to identify what's already in existence, so we are not reinventing the wheel. And I think one of a good source would be our aldermen, and with city council, finding out what's going on in their ward and how we can collaborate. And that way we can hear from parents and a diverse individuals that will represent those meetings. So that's just one thought that I wanted to express, and I certainly hope that board members really grasp this and make sure that we're present. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to reiterate what Denise is saying. I was recently out at Cherry Valley Elementary School, and to be engaged with the teachers and the students and the parents was just meant everything. It just kind of hit home to this is what we're here for. So I think it's very important to get out there. I was there for the Donuts with Grown-Ups, and I also had the opportunity while I was there to actually be a part of the visit with Central State. So it was great to be out there and see not only the parents and the students and the administration at the school. They were very welcoming. They were eager to take us around and take me around and show me the programs that they have. And also the students that were here from Central State were a great group of great bunch of students, and they had really great questions, and they seem to be really interested in coming here. So just to kind of reiterate what Earl, Denise, and Dr. Jarrett is stating.
Thank you, Mrs. Haley. Now,
I'm sorry, just real quick. I just want to add one quick thing to what you both just said. If you look on that document, just to address that, we are addressing that. On the document, I think it's the last page. It's the 2 things on the bottom there that my name is next to, where we're going to be building out kind of what are those really important engagements that we should really be at. So as you're kind of looking at this document, if you want to just look at that and just, kind of add what are those really, really important things that we should all kind of make an effort, what are the top 10 or whatever that is that we need to all be at. So just wanted to add that component. Thank you.
Dr. Jarrett sorry, David, I see your son. If we lose track of our paper copy in the next month, is it going to be attached to the board doc somewhere?
Yeah, I'm going to be sending this back out to the board. I just wanted to provide this as a tactile thing for tonight's meeting, but we will be sending a draft copy out to the board later this evening.
And thank you. Thanks for all the work on this. I know we've had a lot of conversations, and there's been ongoing additions, and one of my asks had been a return to our parent council that we had a long time ago, and by expanding it to even larger group of parents and will hopefully meet that need, and I'm sure we'll see some overlap on there. I'm just going to mention the one thing I had asked you for this week. Previously, and this is pre-COVID, we had meetings in the fall for our parent groups, like our PTOs and our booster clubs and the like, and we would have an opportunity for them to get together in the fall, talk over bylaws, finance, what they had to register with the state. We kind of got away from that, and that will be part of a calendar that we work out as well. That's not quite the same as, ongoing meetings, but we're going to make sure to get that in a calendar because those parent organizations are really ramping up again now. They kind of died after COVID when, they had changeover of parents in the buildings, and then so they didn't have leadership to help them make that transition. And so I'm not sure where that's going to fall in which calendar where, but is another group that I'd like to see.
Thank you. The only thing that I really wanted to highlight, aside from my appreciation for this much listening going on, it's been interesting. I've listened to a lot of people in the last 7 years that I've been on the board, but the listening is really hard to translate into something that can be shared with the board. It's usually very just a personal thing, a problem to solve. But being able to listen to groups, I think, is going to be enormously valuable. The only thing I would point out is when we are meeting with families, being absolutely as flexible as possible with both times and locations, because I know that that's going to be the most varied group, and people have busy schedules, they have commitments, they have things that pull them in lots of directions, yet their voices are still very important. And so if we can make sure that we are as flexible and being present to them as possible, that will be a way to get the best voices to us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, as I prematurely moved ahead, we're going to go back. Now on to the community partnership. Again, 2 events that were attended by board members and staff in February were a discussion focused on youth violence, hosted by the League of Women Voters, and the Black Winter Scholarship Fundraiser, a partnership between the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois, Representative Maurice West, Alderwoman Gabrielle Tarina, and Tony Turner. This event was held to raise funds for a variety of youth scholarship. At this time, I will offer an opportunity for any of the board members that attended the event for comments. If not, I'll just share something that I noticed, and I'm going to paraphrase because I can't quote her, but it was a young lady who spoke, and she was pretty much talking about access. So she was a really good student. She had a high GPA, but she kind of focused on her peers that worked harder than she did, but wasn't in the same place that she was at in terms of her parents being able to afford to send her to Rock Valley for the dual credit or that specific program there. And her father talked about meeting the deadline or not meeting the deadline and having to make the sacrifice. And they talked about how so many of our Black students don't have that opportunity to navigate like that, and to see a young person express and talk about access was very moving. And I look forward to the day that we can really support in a very equitable way to assured that students that desire, that are getting good grades, that are being passed up, maybe the school counselor is not on their radar, whatever the case may be, that we pause and find those students and be of assistance to them to be successful. So that was what I experienced. It was a fantastic event, and it was a huge turnout, and the purpose was just right on point, and you saw a collaborative effort to make it happen. Anyone else?
Yes, I would just like to further discuss what Ms. Pearson was describing. The Black Winter Scholarship fundraiser was a dynamic event, and it also not only did the funds generated go towards opening access or creating access for early college students, but also a number of the minority scholarships that are endowed with the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois. The young lady, Timberland Turner, did a phenomenal job describing how, like Ms. Pearson has stated, how there's a lot more of her students of her caliber out there that would like to participate or, be afforded the opportunity to attend the early college program, but, lack the funds. So that was a great addition, hearing it from the students. And there was a select number of students also there that also discussed their whether they were recipients from some of the scholarships that were being fundraised for, or just stating their experience in navigating through this system that we have at RPS 205 in the collaboration with Rock Valley College, whether it be the dual credit program or the early college. Additionally, I would like to, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I was hesitant on calling names, but and it dawned on me that Mr. Turner did give me, he sent a clip actually that I couldn't forward. That's why we didn't have it. So hopefully he can get it edited and we can look at it, in the upcoming time. But it was a sight and to see and words to hear. So it was definitely worth attending and supporting. Okay, as always, we end by showing the board calendar. As a reminder, you access the board calendar on Board Docs and can have it added to your Google Calendar for a quick retrieval if you need to. If you're having trouble finding or assessing the calendar, contact Laura Frum or Laura Lammer. Both of them will be happy to assist. It is important that you remember to view this calendar, that we remember, let me add that, to view this calendar regularly, as it is a source of event detail. As we will also be adding to the meeting, Dr. Jarrett mentioned earlier, when you visit the calendar and click on the event, the details of the event are displayed. And there's an example present for an upcoming event, the annual dinner for the Booker's African American Resource Center on Thursday, March 23rd at 6 p.m. If you're interested in attending, we have seats available. So please contact Laura Frum to let her know if you would like to attend this event. Thank you. That is all I have for the Internal External Stakeholder Committee. Back to you, Ms. McCulloch.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is Planning and Development Committee, but I'm going to ask the board's permission to make a deviation in the agenda. We have a large group of people here for the charter school performance review, and so I'd like to move 7 up, the Performance Monitoring Committee. Are there any board members who would have any problem with doing that? All right, then I'll give the floor to Ms. Stanford, and you'll leave the Performance Monitoring Committee portion, please.
Thank you. This evening, we have 3 items for the Performance Monitoring Committee. Tonight, we will hear fiscal year 23 financial projections from CFO Dr. Greg Brown. Also this evening, we have our partners from the charter schools, Jackson, Legacy, and Galapagos, here to update the board on their progress and priorities for the future. Finally, we'll end our committee with an update from Ms. Jennifer Lawrence, Executive Director of Student Services, who will provide information about changes to the Student Code of Conduct for the 23-24 school year. First, Dr. Brown will present the fiscal year 23 projections.
Okay, good evening. As you can see, we have a lot of numbers on a page right there. So,
wow.
This is really just meant to be a quick snapshot of where, you know, all the funds were on December 31st of 2022 compared to where the budgets were and then where we were actuals in the previous 2 years. So we have seen some improvement through December 31st of 2022, you know, overall in the budget to actuals. So we were projecting, you know, a deficit going into this year, and this is largely due to the deficit. It's not an operating deficit. It's largely due to all the capital projects that we're working on. So you'll see that we've improved by about $4 million. The largest part of the improvement has really come from just a couple of big line items. One, substitute contract. We haven't spent near as much, mainly because we can't fill the substitute positions. We have seen a little bit of a decrease in, you know, some of the spending for contracted transportation for outside service providers, and also we've benefited a little bit from fuel. And then also in the tort immunity fund, we haven't spent as much there, and we're not projecting to spend as much there because we can't get all the resource officers from the city. They've only filled about half the positions that we've engaged with them to fill. And then also we filled a few less of the security positions that we were anticipating. So that's where we're sitting right now. Going into the last, you know, kind of half of what we think the fiscal year is going to be, we do see that we're probably going to end up to the plus side on the revenue side. It's most likely going to be in the education fund where we get corporate personal property replacement tax receipts. We're already sitting at $45 million received, and we've still got typically what are the 3 biggest months to receive corporate personal property replacement tax coming in March, April, and May. And so we'll likely eclipse that $594 million on the revenue side of things too. But again, those are one-time monies. So, you know, those are the kind of things that we want to spend on one-time things. So that's just a rough projection of where we're at. We'll give you another one here probably in May when we look at the first 9 months of the year. So any questions just generally going into this right now? Things are tracking better than what we thought they were going to when we prepared the budget.
Any questions? Ms. Pearson?
Yes, so just for clarity, the projection was made before the added funding that we receive as it relates to COVID?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So we're below the projection.
We're spending, yeah, we're tracking less on the expenses than we thought we were going to.
Okay, and so my question is, did you take into consideration the added funding that like the ESSER funds, or this was done?
Yeah, that's all in there. Yep, all that's in there.
Okay.
We're just spending less on the expense side right now, which is why we're tracking a little better. We haven't made any kind of adjustments to the revenue side yet, because as of December 31st, we were tracking pretty much right on with the revenue projections, but we know that we're going to spend less in some of those expense areas, which is why we made some adjustments on the expense side. That's where the improvement's at right now. It's just all on expense savings that we're anticipating by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Our next item is our charter school renewals and progress updates. Each charter has recently completed the renewal site visit process under the direction of Dr. Wolf and the Improvement and Innovation Department. The board has multiple items and a detailed executive summary available in board docs for your review as you listen tonight. After Dr. Jarrett introduces this item, we'll hear directly from the leadership of each charter school for 5 to 7 minutes. Please hold your questions for the end of the presentations. Our purpose tonight is to review each charter's progress and learn about the administration's process moving forward. Dr. Jarrett will outline our next steps.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to hearing from our charter partners and talking about their reflections on the work they're doing to serve Rockford Public Schools students in our community. So thank you all for being here this evening. There are really 3 key steps I want to highlight before we bring our charter partners forward. Number 1, we are going to be here tonight to affirm the plan for a 2-year renewal with a commitment to a 5% increase in literacy and numeracy over the next 2 academic years for our charter partners, or an option to do a 5-year renewal with conditions, which would include partnering with some kind of a larger national network or charter management organization or other service model to be mutually agreed upon between the charter partner and the district. So there really are 2 options that we will not be contemplating tonight, but could be contemplating down the road with our partners depending on what they choose. But all 3 of our charters, we are here to affirm that there is at a minimum a commitment to a 2-year renewal with the commitment to increase student achievement by 5 percentage points in literacy and numeracy. Number 2, we may be coming back to the board with a plan to work with any school that opts for a 5-year renewal. And 3, we will definitely, no matter what, be returning to the board with contracts either way. So at a later date, we will be coming back with either a 2-year renewal or a 5-year renewal, depending on what option each charter partner determines. And with that, I want to turn it over to our charter partners to begin telling their story. And I know it's really hard to tell your story in 5 to 7 minutes, but I want to give the background that the district spent many, many days, quarterly meetings, in partnership with our charters to do a very rigorous review process, and that is what you have included in your attachments here. So there is a tremendous amount of time spent together reviewing the performance of these schools and making an assessment of what is going well and what opportunities for improvement exist. But tonight we want to hear directly from our charter partners to tell parts of the story that they would like to highlight to our Board of Education. So with that, I don't know who we selected to go first, but okay, Jackson is going to be our first presenters this evening. So Jackson, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening. There's a cheat sheet coming around that has some of the items highlighted from the packet that we have submitted for our application. My name is Emily Wallen, and I'm honored to stand before you today as the Executive Director of Jackson Charter School. I'm joined this evening by a few of my colleagues. I have Mrs. Starla Copeland, who is our Director of Climate and Culture, Mr. John Bragg, who is one of our staff members, as well as Mr. Tamir Bell, one of Jackson's board members. Our school has been serving the Rockford community now for over a decade. It is with great pride that I can say that we have been providing high-quality education for our students. This evening, I would like to briefly explain what makes Jackson different from other schools in the Rockford area and highlight some of the awesome things that we have done in the past decade. Jackson Charter School has always strived to be different from other schools. We are the only school in the district that offers African American studies on a year-round basis for all grade levels, kindergarten through grade 5. Additionally, Jackson offers STEM instruction for all students. Our school is only one of 2 in Rockford which utilizes the house system. Our unique approach to education is based on personalized learning plans that take into account the needs and strengths of each individual student. This approach has allowed us to help students achieve their full potential and has also resulted in a high rate of success and satisfaction among our students and parents. At Jackson, we have a team of highly dedicated and experienced teachers who are committed to our school's mission of providing an education that prepares students for success in the real world. Our teachers not only focus on academic excellence, but also instill values such as respect, responsibility, and perseverance. We have a rigorous academic program that addresses the Common Core. Our curriculum is designed to challenge and engage our students, and we regularly assess student progress to ensure that they are meeting their goals. In fact, for the first time since the inception of Jackson Charter School, our summative designation has been raised to commendable status. And at the close of the 2021-22 school year, we achieved the highest level of performance we have ever experienced on both the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, or the IAR, as well as the Northwest Evaluation Association, otherwise known as NWEA. As illustrated in the provided handout and as well in the packet for our application, you can see that our test results for the 2021-22 school year have shown higher growth rates than previous school years for our students, and particularly within the 5th grade level. In this population, approximately 27% of our 5th graders met or exceeded expectations on the IAR, ELA, or literacy assessment. Our 4th grade population also met or exceeded expectations by 15.6% on the same assessment. The area of mathematics, however, does continue to be an area of growth for our students and is the case for many schools in Illinois in general. However, to that end, the administration has put interventions in place in order to target this, which are also on the handout for you to peruse. For example, we have purchased a mathematics intervention program, and we have ongoing professional development with a mathematics expert, a professor from NIU that has worked with our school. At Jackson Charter School, we take pride in our community involvement and parent engagement as well. Our school organizes regular events and meetings to keep parents informed of their child's progress, as well as to provide them with opportunities to be involved in our school's activities. We believe that a strong partnership between the school and parents is essential for our students' success. And new for the 2022-23 school year, we've also begun to offer extracurricular activities, such as our Student Ambassadors Group and our Young Philosophers Club. These help our students develop their interests and passions outside of the classroom as well. So in conclusion, I would like to urge the school district to renew our school's charter. Our school has been an integral part of this community, and we are committed to continuing our tradition of excellence in education. We believe that we have demonstrated that we are a valuable asset to this community, and we are committed to continuing to provide quality education to our students. Our personalized learning approach, academic achievements, and commitment to and dedication to our community are just a few of the reasons why our school should be allowed to continue to serve this community. We hope that you will see the value we bring to the community to renew our charter and partner with us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wallen. Would we like to have each group present and then do questions at the end, or would you, or?
I would prefer if we ask questions of each group. What do you think, June? It's your committee.
Are there any questions? Ms. McCullough?
I do. I'm looking at the numbers for SPED. Can you tell us about your about your students' population?
Yes, student population in general. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
SPED.
Oh, okay.
Special education
Yes.
students, students with disabilities.
That's a great question. So traditionally, and going back, I have been at Jackson Charter School since the 2010-2011 school year. We were very heavy with our special education population historically. We have actually decreased now to about 12% of our population, and those students are showing higher progress in many cases in contrast to our general education population. I know that we've highlighted some of that in another handout. I don't know if you had received that this evening, but it was part of our packet. However, we have seen an increase in special education in particular as well. And so that number of students has actually decreased, like I was saying. It used to be around 27% of our school population.
I know Ms. Lawrence is here. What is the percentage for the district? 12% also, so it reflects
Yes.
that.
Yes.
My second question is, what is the reading program you're using with your students?
It's close to the district
14,
average now.
so
Yes.
thank you. What is the reading program you're using with your students?
Our reading program right now, we are using Wonders, which is the reading program that we have been using. We've also been supplementing with iReady, and then we have been doing the Jan Richardson program for our guided reading, which we have actually partnered with Rockford Public Schools, and we have partnered with Conklin Elementary School in order to get the professional development that our teachers need in order to be effective in their small group instruction for reading. So that's something that we have newly implemented this school year. Another thing that we have done with our special education program is we use Wilson Reading, and we also use Fontes and Pinnell, the leveled literacy intervention program. But in addition to all of that, it's always based on developmental appropriateness of where the students are performing, each individual. So
that's a lot of different programs. So which one of those was your phonics program?
So our basic program that we're using for everyone is Wonders.
Okay, and is that a phonemic awareness program, or is it a more of a balanced literacy program?
Yes, it has. It is based on phonics. However, it does have some of the balanced literacy components as well, but that's why we use the other curriculum to supplement.
And you are using Fontes and Pinnell?
For our special populations as an intervention program.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have demographics on your teachers and staff? Demographics on your teachers and staff?
Yes, we have a very diverse population of our staff. Right now, we do have approximately, I believe it was 40% are African American or other mixed race. And so we do have a very diverse population in our staff in particular.
Do you have that information to be reviewed in any form that we could see?
I'm not sure if it was in the application packet or not, but I can double check that, and if it's not, then I can provide that information to you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Haley, can I add to your question, when you're saying 40%, is that certified staff?
It's certified and non-certified. So
what percentage of your certified staff?
I would say probably about 25%, 30%.
And what is your retention rate?
Retention rate for staff has varied over time.
For certified staff?
Yes, it has varied over time. Right now, it has not been positive. We've had probably approximately 60% of staff retained.
Like last year to this year?
Yes, last year to this year.
So 60%, so 40% of your staff left. And
correct.
Can you tell us about why you think that is?
A lot of the time when our staff has actually been transient like that, it's been due to people moving out of the district. In fact, we had several teachers that, because our history is rooted in CICS, a lot of people assume that we are in Chicago or we are closer to the city. So we have a lot of applicants that are commuting from other areas around Rockford, and once they've actually come out and spent some time at our school, they either choose to move out here to stay and work at Jackson, or other times they will leave and then go back to wherever they have come from in order to, stay with their families.
Are you fully staffed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes, so it sounds like you have good parental engagement.
Yes.
And how were you able to obtain that?
That's a great question. So that has not always been the case. In fact, historically, that has been an area of growth for Jackson. With the invention of our new position this year, the Director of Climate and Culture, we have been able to expand that, and Mrs. Copeland has been able to reach out to the community, reach out to our families, do more things just out in the community in general so that we are able to bring in families and parents. Another thing that we have implemented this school year is a family engagement specialist, and that individual works alongside Mrs. Copeland in order to make sure that families are being heard, that they have a voice, and they have a forum so that they are able to come in and express those things. And so those have been very successful with our school, and just trying to do whatever we can to bring people out from the community into our school.
That's commendable.
Thank you.
You indicated, and I just want clarity, in terms of teaching based on developmental.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. With our students, each student has an individualized learning plan, and I do know that's in one of the packets that has been submitted to you all, so you should have that for your review. And what we do is we use just various ways of measuring. So not only do we use our NWEA map data, but we also use anecdotal data from the teachers, as well as just phonological awareness data, as well as phonics data with screeners in order to determine where the students are at developmentally. So for example, one of the tools that we had is the phonological awareness screener for intervention. When that screener is presented to our students, then we are able to see where they are at on a continuum developmentally speaking. So for example, if a student is learning how to identify initial phoneme sounds, then we know that that's where they are at in the developmental cycle, where they would also be learning, for example, rhyming pairs. And so using that information, we are able to then hone in on the areas that the student needs to focus on instructionally. We are now implementing, because math has been an area of growth for us for a very long time, and we are now implementing a more developmentally appropriate approach towards mathematics as well, so that we are personalized with all of our approaches to instruction, not just in ELA, but also in the area of math.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Just curious to know, I don't know if I overlooked it or if it was even in the packet, but what is the makeup as far as experience level for your certified teachers? For example, 1 year, 2 year, what is the majority primary makeup of those staff?
That's a great question. So also historically, which I wanted to speak from, we have gotten a lot of first year and second year teachers. This year, we have a pretty good mix, but most of our teachers have been teaching in the district or at another charter school for approximately 2 or 3 years.
Ms. McCullough, did you have another question?
Yeah, I did. What is your attendance rate for your students? I'm trying to read through this as fast as I can. What is your attendance rate for your students?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, our attendance has improved substantially. We usually are around 90% ADA. That is one of our goals we've been working on.
So this year it's 90%? Or...
Yep.
Okay, I didn't find last year's. And I did find all your reading programs under your application, but it says Wonders is a basal reader. Mm-hmm. That Hegarty is phonemic, so I think that was a mistake. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? To move on to our next.
All right, we'd love to invite Legacy up. Thank you to our representatives from Jackson for being here. And now we would like to invite Legacy, and when Legacy completes, then we will invite Galapagos to join us.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Forte. I'm the Executive Director of Legacy Academy and actually one of the founders of Legacy Academy. So I've been there since its inception back in 2009. And I want to thank all of the board members for this opportunity to just speak to some of the work that Legacy has been doing in an effort to prove itself a partner to Rockford Public Schools and hopefully a good option for Rockford families. Please bear with me. I don't have my best glasses with me, so I'm going to try to do this as best I can. First of all, one of our theme actually in our creed and our motto is working hard at work worth doing. And, you know, we value our students tremendously, and so we try to do the work to promote them, to elevate them, to help them reach their full potential. And some of the highlights are that we have earned a summative designation of commendable from the state each year since 2018. We have been an International Baccalaureate MYP World School, and that's middle years program, since 2015, and we have been able to maintain that authorization. We have obtained candidacy for authorization to become an International Baccalaureate primary years program for our K-5 students. And then ultimately and overall, we offer a nurturing and safe environment for our students, incorporating character virtues, habits of mind, and the IB learner profile into all daily instruction. And our intent is continue along this vein as long as we are able to do that and provide those services for Rockford students. We wanted to just point out a little bit, and I don't want to spend too much time on these. How do I change this to get to the next? There we, nope.
Can someone assist her, please?
There it is. Right. What we wanted to take a look at and just highlight is the fact that and by design and by definition, charter schools are supposed to work with the most at-risk students, and that is what Legacy is doing. The primary number of students that we are serving come from the 4 zip codes that have the lowest median income. So we've pursued that, and our students are coming from the lowest income areas, and we are definitely trying to work with those students and prove that the income does not make a difference, that these students can excel, and they do excel academically, despite the fact that they're coming from low income areas. So that's a point of focus for us and a point of pride for us. What we're working on here, we were just taking a look at the targeted growth for our schools. And we were looking at the state's requirements and the state's guidelines, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. English language arts growth, 25%, and that's what we earned. Math growth was at 25%, proficiency 7.5, math proficiency 7.5, science proficiency 5%, English learner progress proficiency 5%, chronic absenteeism 20%, and climate survey. Well, I wanted to focus on this, or at least point this out, because the greatest amount of acknowledgement acknowledgement and recognition is given to growth, which is important for us to be able to acknowledge with our students. It is their growth. Some of the kids come to us with deficits, but when they're able to show significant and substantial growth, that means that we're doing our job, and we use that as an indicator of where we should be moving with the students. Here we go. And next, what we indicated, just to point out again that Legacy has been among those schools in Rockford Public Schools that has received a commendable. In 2018, there were 15 commendable schools, and Legacy was among those 15. In 2019, there were 17 commendable schools, and Legacy was among those 17 schools. In 2022, RPS had 18 commendable schools, and Legacy was among those 18 schools. And so we're very proud of the fact that we've been able to maintain that commendable summative standing for 3 years. With our next one, what we wanted to take a look at was our average growth over time. So we took a look at our growth in 2019 in English language arts, which was 44%, and that increased in 2022 to 52% growth. In math, 2019, it was at 39%. 2022, it increased to 52%. And again, this just speaks to the fact that in working with the children and having some of the sound programs that we have, they've been able to show growth. Next, what we wanted to take a look at is our subgroups. With our special ed students in grades 4 through 8, for English language arts, they showed 52% growth. In math, the average growth for our SPED students is 56%. For ELL students in grades 4 through 8, they showed 54% growth in English language arts and 64% growth in their math. And this is using the IAR data. And then, of course, school-wide, in English language arts, Legacy showed 52% growth in both English language arts and in math. And that's to say that with our subgroups, we always try to make sure that they have access and have the same instruction, the same support, and even any additional support that they may need so that they can be successful and show the same degree of growth as the regular ed population. Our next chart just shows the degree of growth of Legacy as compared to, over time, as compared to the district and to the state. Legacy showed 44% growth in 2019 in English language arts and increased that to 52% in 2022. The district was at 49% in 2019, and that percentage changed to 46%. The state was at 50% in 2019, and then 50% again in 2022. Our point being that Legacy has worked diligently and very hard with our students, and we've been able to show growth that was even greater, a little bit greater than the district showed overall, which only to that point to say that we are a viable member of the district, and we want to be seen in that way as a viable option for Rockford families. With our next chart, okay, this one is for math growth, correct?
because I can't see that chart at all. Math growth, 2019, legacy averaged 39%. 2022, in math, we showed our math growth was at 52%. The district was at 48% in 2019, 44% in 2022. The state was at 50% in 2019 and 50% in 2022. So here, Legacy was able to show greater growth in math that was greater than the districts or the states. We just want you guys to know we are really working hard. We're dancing as fast as we can. We're really trying to do the absolute best that we can on behalf of our students. Science proficiency, now it wasn't included in our renewal, but we were so proud of the data because, and our kids did take the science test. In Legacy's proficiency, now we're not even talking about growth at this point, we're talking about Legacy's proficiency. We went from 26% of our student population being proficient in 2019 to 47% of our students being proficient in science in 2022. So again, it's just to underline and accent the fact that we are truly working hard at work worth doing. Okay, on this next chart, what we wanted to take a quick look at is the summative report, because as you guys know, Dr. Jarrett and Dr. Wolford, they give us an executive summary report at the end of each of the charter contract years. So we wanted to just indicate here the fact that in 2019, we were not showing tremendous proficiency for 2019 in reading and math. And then in 2019, for the climate and culture, we didn't meet. But in governance, we met, and we had a composite score of 1.9. Well, this past year, for proficiency in reading and math, of course, we definitely did meet, and we showed definite growth. And for the climate and culture, we met, and we ended up with a much higher composite score than we had previously. This final, I believe this is our, on this sheet, we're just talking about based on the matrix which we were given for renewal, which was executed on or after July 1st, the following should be noted. Legacy's composite score, 2.45, as opposed to, our composite score is 2.45. We substantially showed growth in English language arts, surpassing both RPS and the state. We showed substantial growth in math, surpassing RPS and the state. There was a substantial increase of students testing proficient in science, surpassing RPS. So we truly, again, worked hard at work worth doing, and so now we definitely do want to be renewed, and hopefully you will feel like we're worthy of renewal, and we'll get our contract renewed and continue the work that we've begun, which we're dedicated, we love the children, and we do work very, very hard at work worth doing. And I'm going to end this there.
Does anyone have any questions?
I just have one quick question, Ms. Dr. Forte. Mm-hmm. What does your parental engagement look like at legacy?
Well, what we do, we reach out extensively to our parents. They get a weekly missing work report. They get 5-week progress reports. We text with our parents. So, there's sort of like we do daily journaling so that on a daily basis, parents know what's going on and they can send notes to the teacher or sign off on things. So we tried to create a situation. Now, there's not a lot of one-on-one because of COVID. It interrupted that, but we're ready to start it back up again and get our parents actually into the building. But the line of communication with our parents is extensive.
Thank you.
Ms. McCulloch?
It appears that your attendance based on this report is 80%. What is your attendance rate?
Pardon me?
What is your attendance rate?
Our attendance rate is...
I mean, in your application, it says 80%. Is that your attendance rate? What is it?
No, the attendance rate is higher than that.
It's about 91%.
Okay. And it says in here that your ELA program, you're using Thinking Core. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that that goes with the whole IB program? Is that?
Oh, yes.
That falls in there. Your percentage of SPED students is what?
Approximately 14% this year.
And your focus is all on growth, but I'd like to see that there's that along with growth, that there's an increase in all your IAR scores.
Yes, with the proficiency, and that's our goal.
I mean, I saw that with science, that you did great, but I'm not seeing that. Am I missing something here with the ELA and math? I don't see the concurrent increase in the meets and exceeds on the IAR that I'm seeing with your numbers on growth, which is... And this is something that we as a district have looked at. I mean, when we were doing MAP tests, we can't just all be about growth. We need to also be about where we fall in proficiency. And so I'm not seeing that in these numbers. Perhaps you can tell me what I'm missing.
Well, it's not that you're missing anything, but we can only work with the children where they start. So we have to work with them where they are and work diligently to get them to the point where the growth is consistent and it's happening. And what we have done is move children from one quadrant to a higher quadrant. So we have many more children now who are right at that level where the next level would be proficiency. But that is going to take a minute when they come and they have a lot of learning deficits. But the growth is an indicator that we're moving in the right direction, and they're going to get there. We're confident of that.
And you've been working 14 years? Or how long has your charter been? Okay. What is your staff retention, certified staff?
Certified staff retention, I'd say, is probably at about 50%.
What is your makeup of your certified staff?
You mean racial makeup?
What is racial makeup?
Oh, boy. I don't really have that number off the top of my head, do you?
I would assume about 40%.
40% what? 40% African American.
How many teachers do you have for 215? Is that what I saw here? 215 students?
Mm-hmm. 16.
All right. So I don't know about Thinking Core. Is that a phonemic program?
You're going to have to stand up, Vic. Come over here. And break down the Thinking Core.
So a couple of years ago, we
Could you please
we made the
introduce
change.
yourself?
I'm sorry. I'm Lynn Victorov. I'm the Assistant Executive Director. I apologize. I didn't introduce myself. About 3 years ago, we made the switch from teaching a reading textbook from cover to cover, and we teach a standards-based curriculum now, which is very inquiry-based, so it is aligned with our IB program, but we teach very heavily the Common Core state standards and focus on those through different curriculums. So for example, if we're teaching about author point of view, we may not have a certain textbook that is very strong with a text that teaches point of view. So we may use a text we use a lot of Engage New York curriculum because it's very standards based. We use a lot of curriculum that we get from the IB as well as common literature. So we use different texts to really focus in and teach the standards, and that's what the Thinking Core curriculum does, is teaches standards through the vehicle of the text, different texts, instead of teaching a textbook from cover to cover.
And is the executive director like a principal?
The assistant executive director.
Is that what I'm not sure what the title is. Are you on the board or are you in the school?
No, I'm academic. I'm on the academic side.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So IB schools are supposed to have multilingual. I mean, the idea is that you have more than one. So what other language are your children learning in your building?
Our kids all take Spanish from kindergarten through 8th grade. And the IB, wants that continuum of language so that they're exposed to that second language. Yes.
Okay, glad to hear that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm still looking at the IAR scores, and I'm excited that you're experiencing growth, but I would expect it to be, it's like if our graduation rate went up, but our SAT scores didn't go up, that would just mean we're graduating more people without the students really performing better. So that's kind of looking for.
I mean, I think we still have to take COVID and all of the situations of COVID and kids being home for over a year. Everybody in education knows that was not a good situation,
and
right?
We do. Yeah.
I mean, we lost a year with our kiddos. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Our proficiency is our number one thing that we're focused on, but we are proud of the growth from where we came from those COVID years and getting kids back in. We even get a lot of kids that have now been homeschooled because parents were afraid to send kids back. And so there's still deficits that we're fighting, every single day to get to that proficiency. I'm confident that we're going to. I'm in classrooms every day. Our kiddos, regardless of their socioeconomic status, are so capable. They just had to overcome something that historically kids never have had to and educators have never had to. And you're right. I mean, proficiency is our number one goal this year.
And you mentioned COVID. I didn't ask this of Jackson, but what did you guys do for that year? Did you have in-person learning?
We had in-person learning. We allowed our parents to bring kids back 100% in person, but even our kiddos that were home were live streamed into the classroom. So they did get the exact same instruction. They were able to interact with the teachers, ask questions. We had a lot of parents that sat next to their kids and asked questions of the teachers. So we feel that we made the best out of a really bad situation, but it was still really difficult. Parents aren't used to having kids home and helping educate them. So
what percentage of your students would you say were in person during the year following?
The year following, first semester, it was 50-50. Second semester, we opened it up again, and we actually got to 80% in person, 20% remote.
Glad to hear. Thank you.
We put up plexiglass around every single desk in the building. We put HEPA filters in every classroom. We bought water coolers and put them individually in classrooms. So we really spent a lot of our COVID funds on getting kids back in school and getting them back educated. That was really important to us. We provided gloves for PE class so kids could go back to PE and safely play ball. We've provided our staff and our students with masks. We still do, because we feel like that's important for parents to feel like their kids are comfortable. And we've continued all of those measures, the HEPA filters in the classrooms. We haven't turned our water faucets back on. We have individual cups that kids can throw away and stuff like that. So,
no, I was just curious because that was the biggest success story. We're in schools that did have in-person learning, so I'm excited that you had them back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding the IB program curriculum. I don't have a point of reference from 2009 to 2015. That's when you started the IB program, correct? Mm-hmm. Has that program have you seen greater gains with the IB program than you did from 2009 to 2014?
That's a really good question, and I don't have that data in front of me, but I would definitely say that the inquiry and the real-life application piece of IB has definitely allowed our kiddos to, to interact more with their learning. Absolutely. I mean, I would definitely say that those gains are there based on the IB program.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you to our partners from Legacy, and now I would like to invite our partners from Galapagos to take the floor.
Hello. Okay. Good evening, RPS board members. We are 8th grade scholars from Galapagos Rockford Charter School. I am Valeria Cruz, Scholar Council President, and I've attended this school since kindergarten.
I am Ziana Wells, Encouragement Chair, and this is my first year attending Galapagos Charter.
And I'm Jessica Rodriguez Torres, Administrative Liaison, and I've been at this school since 5th grade. We believe Galapagos is nothing less than an amazing school. They have supported us in so many ways by giving us great opportunities, great values, and a tremendous education.
Galapagos offers a diverse amount of summer and after-school programs. These are opportunities that most, if not all, Rockford Charter Schools do not offer.
Galapagos has 3 main values: grit, drive, and growth mindset. We are reminded of these values in the Galapagos Creed. It sounds a little like this.
We are the scholars of GRCS.
We are college bound.
We excel through hard work and perseverance.
We make no excuses.
We expect success and improvement in all we do.
We respect ourselves,
respect others,
and respect our environment.
We are the scholars of GRCS.
And we will graduate from college.
Galapagos' main focus is giving their scholars the best education. They give scholars an opportunity to be challenged in subjects. For example, they have an accelerated math program to challenge students in math and advance themselves in their capabilities. We believe in not wasting a minute of valuable education time, and Galapagos makes sure everything is done for educational purpose.
At Galapagos, our mission is to set the mindset of scholars that they are on the road to college. We are college-bound, and our school has prepared us in every form to get us on the road to college. They allow alumni from our school to apply for scholarships and show us all the great colleges our instructors attended. At our school, we are not called students, but we are scholars. This teaches us to be aspirational because of the high expectations we have. We wear uniforms to prepare us to be professional and serious. Galapagos is a great school to have scholars learn grit, drive, and growth mindset.
The opportunities Galapagos offers their scholars are absolutely incredible. The summer and after-school programs like Project Passport and Not Your Dad's Summer Programs offers their scholars the opportunity to visit and learn about different countries, cultures, and different parts of the U.S. Galapagos offers after-school programs titled After School X, gives scholars engaging and meaningful new experiences to discover new things and learn new skills.
Galapagos is a wonderful school that deserves to stay open. This school gives many kids wonderful opportunities and has a great academic curriculum that I believe should remain open for other kids to have that opportunity. The staff and instructors here are very welcoming, and it's easier to have instructor assistants and a bond with your instructors at GRCS than at any other school. It's also a school with very little drama and issues. because every scholar is here for one reason, which is to learn, and that's what makes the school so great. And they come here to get an education and make it to college.
I believe Galapagos Rockford Charter School should stay open as a charter school because every kid should have an opportunity to attend this school just like I did. I've grown so much from being at this school. I have learned to have grit, drive, and growth mindset, as well as having the mindset that I will go to college. I've joined Model UN and Scholar Council, and it's where I practice my public speaking and to be responsible and productive. Everything Galapagos has taught me since kindergarten has and will stick to me for the rest of my life because of the great values and goals it sets for scholars. Everyone else should be taught this, and that is why Galapagos should continue to be open.
Despite not having attended Galapagos for long, both the staff and students haven't failed in making me feel included. Galapagos gives all their scholars the same opportunities as they would give to the others. I feel as if others my age and younger should have the same opportunities I've had, if not more. This can only happen if the school is still available to them. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Siegel.
As far as your public speaking chops, the top shelf, you guys did great. So thank you very much for being here and representing, Galapagos. I'm uncertain if you are the ones who are supposed to field the questions that we have asked the other schools.
I think it's dependent upon the question.
All right, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I guess I would like to toss out some of those same demographic questions in regards to staff, attendance, that we have heard from the other schools. And ladies, thank you again. You guys were wonderful.
If I may, my name is Michael Lane. I am the CEO of Galapagos Rockford Charter School. I did just want to say one thing. They did a wonderful job. I want to just be very clear. They were told or asked on Friday to put together a speech. They did it by themselves, independently. In fact, today was the first day I heard the speech this afternoon at about 3 o'clock. And I gave them absolutely no critique other than to make sure you speak up a little bit. The other thing that I think is important to know that these young ladies, in addition to being on Scholar Council, this summer I believe Ziana is going to Northwestern's Gifted and Talented Camp, a program that we've had for 12 years now. Jessica is going to, and this is really exciting, she's going to a program we're piloting with University of Wisconsin in Madison, their gifted program, where for the first time ever, University of Wisconsin is offering it as a bilingual program. In fact, we're one of the lead schools in that partnership at the middle school level. And then finally, Valeria is going to the National School Leadership Council in Washington, D.C. And I know sitting behind the podium over there, you're probably saying, okay, Mike, you picked 3 of your top scholars. Well, 140 of my scholars will be attending similar programs this year in 4 different countries and 12 different states. That's about 40% of our entire scholar student body will do that. Now, I understand that that's not a normal curricular program, but when you look at best practices, especially in ELA, exposure to new topics, to new vocabulary, new experiences is one of the top drivers in terms of literacy improvement over long term. So the fact that 40% of my scholars now do that, our goal is 100%. And in 3 years from now, 2 years from now, we will be closer to 100% on that. That being said, I did want to just thank the ladies one more time, and if you would like, just let me know what question you would like me to start on. I will definitely do so.
Thank you. I guess I would like to just kind of run through the questions that have already been asked of the other two charters. So I guess we can start with attendance, start with staff diversity breakdown.
Sure. Let's start with attendance. Before COVID, we were close to 94% on a regular basis. Definitely we took a hit, like I think every school in the country took a hit. I think we dropped, our lowest point during the pandemic was about 82%. We have since come back up. We're at just shy of 90% right now. And I believe January was surprisingly, one of our stronger months with a 13% year-over-year increase on percentage for the month of January. But in the aggregate, we're about 90% attendance this year. And certainly our goal would be in the next year or so to be back around our 94% mark. In terms of diversity of our certified staff, we're approximately 60% white, about 30% African American, y más o menos 10% de latinos, de los hispanohablantes. So we're definitely growing in our Latino population, which also marks the growth that we're seeing in our scholar Latino population as well. So we've definitely become more diverse there. In terms of retention, certainly over the years, we did struggle with retention. Actually, we certainly struggled during COVID as well. We are now at about 80% retention of our certified staff, and actually probably even a little higher in our non-certified staff. I'm sorry, I heard that, so I'm going to answer that. And certainly if I don't answer it correctly, we're slightly over 14%. We're about 14.1%. We've held pretty steady at that number, actually, for quite a few years.
And then the literacy curriculum that you were using?
Yeah, I'm going to pass that over to our Chief Academic Officer, Stephanie Bedeker.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Bedeker, CAO. So we ground all of our literacy in science of reading-based curriculum. So our knowledge building curriculum is EL. We use that at all grade levels, and then we explicitly teach phonics at the lower grade levels. We use really great reading integrity to teach phonemic awareness and phonics. And then we have a rewards intervention program that we use in grades 4 and up.
But your scores. So I'm looking at proficiency, mathematics, school, all students. And that's science. Mathematics, 3.3%. Could that be right?
Our last year's scores are very, very low historically for us.
10% for ELA, sorry.
Our last year's scores are very low historically for us, and I guess I'll echo a lot of what Dr. Forte shared. I think that, we're coming from a place of trying to close gaps, right? So we are looking for growth year over year. We're trying to bring kids who are 2-3 years below grade level to grade level in a year's time, right? And sometimes that happens. It's not always happening. It is our number one concern. We've brought in new intervention programs to address it, particularly in math. Math has been a huge concern for us since COVID, especially. We've lost a lot of the momentum that we had before COVID, particularly with math instruction. This year we brought in a program called Spring Math for intervention, and we've seen really promising results mid-year. So we're hoping to see that trajectory continue to improve.
And this is 3.3% last year, meet or exceed.
Last year, yes.
If I may, though, and certainly that number is correct, and as Ms. Bedeker said, historically low for us. We're not seeing similar data from our NWEA maps, and we were one of the first schools to roll out NWEA map in the city years ago. We're close to 50%, a little shy of 50% of at grade level according to NWEA map, and certainly seeing growth on that as as well. So the IRA data is certainly weak, certainly something we're aware of and working upon, both through programs Ms. Bedecker said, and even some programs that the girls had mentioned. We're now offering an advanced math class, an algebra class that we expect our first group to do quite well and pass out of integrated math 1 and 2 from RPS as they come in as freshmen. So we see a lot of great points of light moving forward in our academic, and we know we've been there before, we've been much higher before, and I think all the indicators when you're looking at staff retention being some of the strongest we've seen, our scholar retention, which I know it's a little early to speak of about that, but we're already seeing normally at this time of year about 20% of our scholars have already signed up again for the following year. As of this morning, about 62% of our student body have already signed back up, which is, most of our parents normally do that in the late spring or early summer. So I think the indicators or those foundational pillars will be extremely strong for us in terms of increasing academics moving forward. In fact, I'm confident, I'll tell this board this right now, we will increase by 5% or more. There's no doubt. If not, I'll resign.
As far as any outside resources to help with student achievement, do you utilize any tutoring services or community support?
So we do most of our tutoring in-house. Our tutoring has not been as robust as it had been in the past. We're slowly ramping that back up. But in terms of community partnerships, I mentioned the Northwestern program, which is a pure academic program. We've sent over the last decade, we've sent over 100 kids to advanced programming at Northwestern. The Wisconsin program is an academic program. It's the first year we're doing that, but we will, we see a lot of promise in that program. The National School Leadership Program out of Washington, D.C. is an advanced program for our scholars. We sent 2 scholars there last year. We'll send 6 scholars there this year to that program. We work with Best Delegate, which is a Model United Nations program. We're the only school in the city, and actually the only school in northern Illinois that offers a middle school Model United Nations program. You could see some of the results from Miss Cruz. That young lady would have had a difficult time coming up to me and shaking my hand 2 years ago, and now she's speaking in front of all of you. Additionally, we've got more local partnerships. We partner with the Burpee Museum. Academically, we send our children once a week, our children who are going to be traveling to Costa Rica this summer. They spend every Wednesday or every other Wednesday over at the Burpee Museum prepping to walk the rainforest in Costa Rica. Our children who will be going to Uganda and Rwanda will also start working with the Burpee Museum a little later on this year. We were the only school that I'm aware of that sent children to Paleo Fest last week at the Burpee Museum, and the Burpee Museum will be running a summer program specifically for Galapagos scholars this summer, something that we did pre-COVID and are bringing back for the first time. So our partnerships are maybe not as traditional as as others, and I'm not putting those partnerships down in any way, but I think these are extremely unique partnerships that really create students who are strong thinkers and certainly give them the background to become strong global citizens.
Are these partnerships accessible to all students? Or
yes,
is there criteria?
In fact, we are so proud of that. I'm so glad you asked that. Our goal, as I said, is to make every program, we want 100% of our scholars to be doing at least one program over the summer moving forward. Our programs are extremely accessible. The most we charge would be about $200 to go to Costa Rica. That's a week-long trip in Costa Rica, working in the rainforest with biology biologists, working in a turtle sanctuary, taking Spanish classes, and that $200 is the most a parent would pay. If a parent has having problems with that, we provide either fundraising opportunities or even just even more direct support than needed. So, I mean, I think the proof is in the numbers, right? 40% of our student body, and we have a student body of about 350, 40% of our student body will be doing some program this summer.
And I have one other question, and I don't think I've asked this of the other ones, but I'm curious about your day-to-day for your students, especially the elementary school students. What is a typical day like for them to do? Or is there any extracurricular available to them, or any?
We have wellness at both campuses, which is what we call our physical education program, because we also like to include definitely life skills within that programming. We also offer art classes at both campuses. We have a very robust crew program, which is really kind of a community building program throughout. Did you want to add anything? No. And then, of course, all of our scholars certainly have access to our After School X programming, which runs the gamut of sewing classes to taekwondo, to gardening, to basketball, to Model United Nations, as we've mentioned. So definitely something that, if we flash back to 14 years ago, we were not a school that was going to offer art. We were not a school, we were simply math and reading. And I think that we've really become much more holistic. I think we've grown. We've taken our core values to heart, that core value being growth mindset, and really pushing ourselves to provide even more programming to all of our scholars.
This isn't for you. I'm just going to make a final comment. And we're going to have to talk about, what we're going to do moving forward. But I was on this board when we brought charter schools in and voted them in. And I just thought it was a great opportunity for our students. It's come to be that students have an alternative school that they can choose. But we gave such autonomy to all the charter schools because we thought that they would be able to outperform our schools because they didn't have to abide by contracts and length of day and all the other components. And I'm sad because here we are, over a decade later, and I'm not seeing them outperforming the Rockford Public Schools, even though you have that opportunity. And you're looking and you're looking at. And I'm excited that you're looking at the whole student. And this is not just to you, so I please don't need your comments because they don't get to comment. And looking at students from a different perspective, and I understand everything you've just told us, and I'm excited for your students, that your scholars that are able to do all those things. But at the end of the day, I'm just saying that as a board member who was on board with charters and excited about the alternative learning environments, that it seems, and part of the reason I'm asking about reading programs and the like, is that there doesn't seem to be a lot of alternative education, and the scores that we're seeing from the schools, are not exceeding the scores in the district. So there are other reasons that children choose charter schools, but it's not that we're seeing it so much in performance. And that's just my piece. So thank you. And we are way over our time here, and I'm sorry because I contributed to that. Tina.
Tiana. And I just want to echo somewhat of what Ms. McCulloch said. Even though I was not on the school board during that time, I was on the bus going up to Chicago with a group of parents and visiting each one of the models for the charter schools. I would say this, that I'm sorry, I would say that I am appreciative of the option of these 3 charter schools. I have visited every single one of them. I've even had a student at Galapagos back in the beginning days of my child attended Galapagos back in the earlier days of you guys coming to Rockford. I'm appreciative of the options, but however, I would like to see some. I share some of the concerns that Ms. McCulloch has mentioned, and again, thank you all for coming. Thank you for your scholars coming out and speaking, and that's all I have.
So we are way over time. Can we borrow some time from governance to finish our?
Happy to share. Governance is always happy to share their time. I'm just wondering if there's anything on our agenda that we can push to next week.
I would suggest, and particularly because our planning chair, Mr. Rollins, is not here this evening, we could perhaps I would recommend to the board that we divide those budget presentations up, which are going to take every bit of 40 minutes, to 20 to 25 minutes of the next two meetings.
And those we don't
more heavily in the second meeting of the month. Okay. I would be happy to work with Chair Rollins and Board President McCulloch to come up with a different plan to get those budget presentations done. Because they are presentations and they're not requiring approval, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to ask, because we do have a couple of things that we will be voting on, so we need to get them for the first reading here tonight under planning and development. But if we could move those and divide them. And
Dr. Brown, are you comfortable with us delaying the budget presentations until the second and fourth meeting of the second and the fourth of the month? We are definitely stretched for time this evening.
Well, what we had here was important. So, and I know we need to have a conversation about the code because we're going to be voting on that. So I cede you that time. Please take the floor.
I appreciate that so much. Next, we'll hear from Jennifer Lawrence to update the board on the Student Code of Conduct for the 23-24 school year.
Good evening. I'm Jen Lawrence, the Executive Director of Student Services, and I have David Graffey with me, the Director of Student Services, to introduce revisions to the Code of Conduct. I know we have a PowerPoint here. First, I'd like to thank everyone that came to the community meetings, the community members, our parent advisory, and some board members. Thank you. We appreciate your support during those meetings. And as you know, we'll move through these slides as they come up, but the Student Code of Conduct outlines our behavior expectations and our discipline policy for our district. And every year we have to review and revise the Student Code of Conduct. There's two pieces to that. One is the requirements set forth by the Illinois State Board of Education, ISB. So there's part of that, and then there's the part that we kind of control and own, which is the matrices that are kind of stuck in the middle. You received the red line Code of Conduct as an attachment in the board docs. And so you can review those changes. Some are formatting changes, and then Mr. Graffey will go through some language changes. So. One thing that we did do this year is we formed a parent advisory committee. In the past, we've relied on the community listening sessions to gain feedback and have conversations with community members. This year, we formed a committee, and we'll be meeting with them regularly to look at discipline policies, trends in discipline data, any type of parent resources that we may need to create to support parents in terms of student behavior across the district. So that's one thing that I'm actually very excited about. We sent out an invitation. We got 64 responses very quickly, and we had about 20 people attend 3 days of revision meetings, and that, just so that everybody knows, that committee is still open for membership. And if you want to apply, there is information within the current Code of Conduct in the first page that gives you information on how to contact us. So again, I went through these parts of the Code of Conduct. The first several pieces are what are mandated by ISB, and then the matrices are what we control and own in Rockford Public. In terms of the first portion of the Student Code of Conduct, in which ISB mandates certain things to be within the Code of Conduct, we noticed that we didn't have very clear language about suspension, the 1 to 3 days and the 4 to 10 days. And so that will be added into our Student Code of Conduct this school year. And you'll see that in the red line proposal. One suggestion from our parent advisory is that we add the word bus in there. And so you'll see that as part of that recommendation. The next section, Mr. Graffi will go through the changes in the language, the definitions of the matrices in the Code of Conduct.
Thank you. Again, my name is David Graffi. I'm the Director of Student Services here in Rockford Public Schools. Last year was our big overhaul. As many of you who were on the board last year were well aware, we did a complete revitalization of the District Code of Conduct, separated into 5 discipline matrices: physical aggression, bullying, damage to property, harmful materials, and disobedience. So those would be the 5 matrices. We also further broke out our discipline into interventions, offenses and definitions, and corrective strategies. Our interventions are through our MTSS structures, which are now documented in Panorama, the platform that the district has signed on for. Our interventions are designed to be proactive, restorative, and individualized for students to meet them with their needs. Our offenses and definitions, part of the revision process for this year was to add language to clarify some areas that had been misinterpreted by some of our administrative teams and for questions that were brought forth by the parent committee. So again, the intention there was to clarify that language to make it easier to read for everyone. And then our corrective strategies are more of the administrative consequences, and those are more reactive and gradual or progressive in nature. So again, for a student who commits a violation, you would expect a lower level consequence, and then the more times that that violation continues to occur, you would expect to see progressive discipline. The Code of Conduct does still allow for more egregious type behaviors to be addressed quickly and swiftly, but also fairly at the same time. Our proposed changes for the 23-24 school year do not have any changes as it relates to the intervention aspect of the Code of Conduct. As Ms. Lawrence stated earlier, all of you have the red line document attached to the board docs for tonight. We wanted to highlight some of the changes that are proposed for our level 4 violations. For those that are listening tonight that are not familiar with the level 4 violations, those are the offense codes that could result in an EIA, which is an expulsion in abeyance or an expulsion recommendation. They are also tied to our more lengthy suspensions of 4 to 10 days. Our offense definition for threats and intimidation, we are adding language regarding the direct threats towards another student or school personnel. This is housed in our bullying, intimidation, sexual harassment, and verbal abuse matrix. Again, one thing that I will point out in this bullet point here is that these threats are directed towards people, so students or additional school personnel, as we have seen a little bit of an uptick in this year with some of the schools, and we wanted to make sure that our code was flexible enough to handle those types of incidents that we see in our schools. Bus violation level 4, we have had a couple incidents this year that we wanted to clarify some language. So we are adding language regarding the tampering with of bus equipment. Again, we have had a couple incidents this year where bus exits were improperly used, and we wanted to make sure that that language was clear for everybody who was reading that. False reports and hoax level 4, we will be proposing language to add language regarding the direct threats towards the school, which would require a threat assessment. And I should state that the threats and intimidation level 4 will also require a threat assessment be conducted at the schools for either one of those 2 codes to be utilized. With the false report and the hoax, this is more designed for threats against the school. So if a student were to call in a bomb threat or, have a swatting, so to speak, where they say there's somebody here with a gun and a SWAT team shows up to our schools and there was not one of those incidents, we would be able to hold that student accountable under this code as well. And then lastly, one of our big changes to level 4 definitions is with our interpretation of battery and aggravated battery. We are proposing to add language regarding the intentionality of hitting, striking, or to otherwise use egregious physical force, and we are defining that as force that does or could result in serious bodily harm, to be more in line with our codes for how that is interpreted with regards to students as well. As far as the corrective strategies, or that far right side of the district code of conduct within the matrices, we have made 2 major changes to our corrective strategies. The bus safety class is something that we've already had as an option for students, but it was not clearly identified within the code of conduct. So we wanted to make sure that that was more readily apparent for students and for families to know that that option was available. That option would be imposed by administration either in lieu of a bus suspension or to shorten the duration of a bus suspension. So in that situation, the student and parent would go to this bus safety class, which occurs on Saturdays. We are currently working with our transportation department to get those classes set up and to make sure that we're going over the curriculum in there. But again, the main basis of that is to review expectations on a bus and what that proper etiquette would look like. But again, that is one of the things that's already in place, but we wanted to articulate more clearly. And then lastly, our big corrective strategy is going to be cell phone bans. This is something that the school board has put in place in years past regarding a multi-tiered system of response to cell phone misuse in our schools, from a level 1 being something as simple as the student's phone is confiscated and returned back at the end of the day, to a level 4 where this phone is confiscated and is not allowed on school property for the remainder of that school year. What we are proposing is amended language here would be the confiscation of the device, return to the parent or guardian, and then again, it is prohibited from being on school grounds. So again, instead of just having a 1, 2, 3, 4 where you have to proceed through those steps, what we are proposing here is that when a cell phone is used in committing a level 4 violation of the code of conduct, so a cyberbullying situation or calling in a bomb threat or a threat against the school, that the administrator would have the ability to jump straight from whatever the student was already at directly to the level 4 and ban that phone from being in that student's possession at school. And what that could look like is it would be part of an EIA agreement, or it could just be a plan imposed by the school. So whether that student doesn't bring the phone at all to school, or if they need it for the events of emergencies, because we know how schools go, that would be in the student's plan where they could bring the phone, checking in with an administrator at the beginning of the day, and if there was an emergency that came up throughout the day, they would be allowed to go down to the office, check it out with the administrator, make their call, and then return it. So those are just some of the couple options that we wanted to have administration have the ability to do. Questions? As I'm sure there will be some.
Ms. Pearson?
Thank you. So I really tried to get an answer to this scenario more than once, and I have not been successful in getting a direct answer. So weeks ago, a student came and spoke and indicated her concern about being suspended. She acknowledged and expressed accountability as it relates to in-school suspension, but the paperwork on a suspension indicated initially that she would not be able to participate in graduation and suspended from all social extracurricular activities. And that was related to a 3-day suspension. So I'm really concerned where it relates to how students are being handled in that situation. And I encourage parents, as always, to be an advocate for their child. In this case, she was 18 and she was able to return to school, but she really wanted to come so the board can hear. And how do we know that measures are carried out in the manner that they are supposed to be carried out? And because, as I stated before, if it happened once, it probably happened before, and no one ever spoke. Maybe the parent or the student didn't feel like they had a voice. So how can we streamline that? And did we ever deal with the school? Because I never received any feedback or follow-up on that situation.
I'll let Mr. Graffi answer about dealing with the school. He's the direct contact with discipline incidents at the school. However, in our internal documentation, so our administrative addendum, which is our guidance to the schools, we have some thinking charts through there that we help them go through the discipline and determine the correct level of discipline as well as the corrective strategies. We're going to ensure that we put those loss of privileges and social exclusion limits within the code of conduct. We have seen that it's typically done at the high schools, and we have seen a variance in the time frame in which they apply those loss of privileges or social exclusion. So to your point, and to answer your question, we will be limiting their ability to, at a level 3, take away graduation if it's like at the beginning of January, right? So that it would be a 1 week, 2 week, 3 week time frame as a part of a punishment or corrective strategy, so to speak, that it shouldn't last all semester for a level 3 violation. And then if you want to answer the school.
And then one other thing that I'll address as well is that just like all school districts in the state of Illinois, after Senate Bill 100 was passed, we are not able to impose zero tolerance policies, with the exception of things that are outlined in the Illinois combined statutes, which is specific to our weapons offenses, so our firearms, knives, billy clubs, brass knuckles, or knuckle weaponry. So those types of things, or any other object used or threatened to be used as a weapon. Outside of those elements, we do not impose zero tolerance policies. Our administrators in each school are the primary people that are in charge of enforcing the code of conduct within their schools. So when it comes to each individual violation of the code of conduct, as Ms. Lawrence stated, we have a flow chart of steps that administrators should consider when deciding what code of conduct violations occurred, and the corrective strategy should be imposed for that. What I will say is incidents such as the one that you are describing, and again, I listened to all the open sessions on the YouTube channel, so shout out to the people that are doing that as well. But I did hear the young lady speak regarding the consequences that she received for that action that she was in. I do believe in her comment she stated that, yes, she agreed with the incident itself, but felt that an in-school suspension would have been a more appropriate corrective strategy for her. Going back to this, each administrator has specific criteria for what they are allowed to use as a corrective strategy, and that's broken up based on our student code of conduct level 1, 2, 3, or 4. For example, an out-of-school suspension is only allowed to be imposed for level 3s or 4s, in-school suspensions for 2s, and then overnight suspensions for level 1. In this situation here, the administrator has the choice of a whole spectrum of corrective strategies that they can use up to and including the things that are available in that level. So in the situation that young lady was describing, it was a level 3 incident, so out-of-school suspension was available, but it was not required, right? So administration should be conducting their investigation, and then based on the facts of that case, they should be assigning an appropriate corrective strategy. So again, there is the flexibility, even for students that get coded within the same code violation, that if an investigator determines that 2 students were mutually involved in a fight, however, one person actively tried to avoid it, they might both get coded with that. However, the corrective strategies can differ greatly depending on the student's involvement.
I just want to add a couple things. So at our parent advisory, this came up. How do we communicate if we're attempting to communicate with the school about a discipline event and we're not getting information back from the administrator, what do we do? And so that's part of the conversation, the ongoing conversation with the parent advisory and with the schools team with Mr. Gallagher to determine how we let them know who the next step would be. Because some parents are saying that they're not getting communication back. So that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that you knew that this did bubble up with our parent advisory, and we will be addressing this. The other piece is we run data for the code of conduct, and we're looking at specific things to ensure that we have equitable implementation across the district. And so this part of what the parent advisory will be doing is be looking at trends and data. So we'll have another set of eyes besides my team's set of eyes to start looking at trends and data, and we can start seeing some outliers. You know, at the end of the day, I really encourage parents to contact their building administrator if they don't agree with the discipline, the corrective strategies that have been imposed on their student. And if they're not getting the answer, we have Let's Talk, and that will go to the principal supervisor.
Okay, so just so you know, the parents really exhausted their method of communicating to get a response from administration. And I'm honing in on this partly because it is very disappointing that there was no follow-up or follow-through. And secondly, by the time we get discipline packets, they're up for, it's like the worst. Mm-hmm. And so I really would like specifically, well, in general, a report, whether it is monthly or quarterly, of our suspension rate. Mm-hmm. Because that is a good indicator of where this student is headed and what interventions that we can actually put in place before it escalates to that. I understand it's work, but again, if it happened to one student, it has probably happened to others, and we really should pay attention to that and prevent that from happening. That could have destroyed her dreams, her confidence, her trust in administration. So it's vital that we have a healthy rapport with our students, mm-hmm. and all voices matter, even those that some don't want to hear, because again, we can learn from that.
I would agree, and unfortunately we aren't alerted to level 3 violations. Where we become involved is level 4. And I do have an out-of-school suspension that I could easily add in school suspension to, a report that I already run. I'd be happy to share with whatever detail you would like on that.
Excuse me, there was a misstatement during the course of the conversation that I cannot leave out there on the open record. We do not have zero tolerance policies. The Illinois School Code does have some offenses for which there is a mandatory recommendation for expulsion. The language is shall be expelled for X amount of time, but those are always subject to modification by the board. So there are no zero tolerance policies, and we really should step away from using that term.
Okay, so going forward, whatever information that you have, and understanding that school administrators or those working with students who have the power to document, one is documenting accurately, and I'll take a closer look at the student code of conduct and to make sure that there is a good understanding of the different levels, because the student also indicated that she didn't have any referrals and didn't have any problems, and it is really bothering me that she had to experience that, and it's overly concerning. So I really would like a closer eye on that before we get to the point that we have to make a decision relying on what is documented. And I've asked questions before, and I was told, well, it's documented right here. So how can I trust what's documented if a administrator is frustrated at the moment and give up such a bizarre consequence for a more minor apparent offense?
Yeah, and we have training every Thursday. And it's not the same administrators, but we go through a rotation every Thursday to train on the student code of conduct. So this is all good information to come back to adjust some training. And then we're closer with the schools team, Morgan and his team, in terms of outliers that we may see to correct some documentation or practices at the schools.
Thank you.
Ms. McCulloch?
So under your cell phone policy, and it doesn't matter if they go there to 4 or not, but the one where it says that they can't have it back on campus, so they bring it back to campus, what happens? What's the next level?
So anytime a corrective strategy is assigned by one of our administrators and a student fails to comply with that, it would be documented as a failure to attend or complete assigned discipline. And then the student would continue to accrue progressive discipline.
Well, they're already at 4. They're at the progressive top. So what would go next for your cell phone policy use in here?
Right, so a cell phone policy level 4 would be the 4th offense of the cell phone violation. That does not necessarily equal a level 4 violation of the code of conduct. So again, that student could still possibly be in the school, right? So they might not have an EIA or an expulsion at that point. Electronic devices is a level 1 violation. So the student could have 4 cell phone violations, which would still leave them at a level 1 according to the code of conduct, but failure to comply with the administrative corrective strategy could then be escalated based on the failure to comply with that plan that is put in place.
How does it escalate?
So it could be through adding things into an intervention plan. So we purchased the clear backpacks that could be imposed upon the student if they're continuing to violate. So the school would continue to try to adjust the intervention plan, working with the student and the family to determine why the student continues to bring the cell phone and correct the behavior.
I'll ask another one that...
If it's part of an EIA, there could be a revocation of an expulsion, of an EIA agreement.
Yeah. Well, this is along the same line, head coverings. I've been in a couple schools lately, and the hoods are on, and I asked the principal, and they say it's not worth it. We're not following that. So I'm not sure why we have a code of conduct if we're not going to follow it. And the same thing with the cell phones. If we say we're going to take it away and it can't be on campus, but then they just keep bringing it to campus because it can't go any farther. And I don't have any problem if we say it can't be on campus that they leave it at the office so that they have it. I mean, I get that and I'm good with that. But the fact that we put things in our code that we don't enforce or don't have a way to really enforce, or it's too much work to enforce. I know that when we started the whole cell phone policy, and I was a huge proponent, I really pushed for it because teachers said it was distracting. But then the teachers pull theirs out during the classroom. And so that kind of modeling for students doesn't help to support the idea that we're all here to focus on the learning. So we can write whatever we want, but if we're not going to enforce it or have it be enforceable, then it needs to be revisited. There's a section in there where it says there's a loss of computer use under, I saw it under bullying, cyberbullying too, for 1 to 5 days. That was repeat, offense, but so do they get to use one in the school for academics and they just lose it for going home, or because so much of our work is done on computers? How does that affect their academic environment progress?
So in the past, with a violation of that nature, I've worked individually with the building principal to determine if it was necessary to be in a classroom, when it would be provided. And so I know, an example, I worked with Jim Parker over at East High School for a student, with him regarding a student, and the device was only provided at certain times in those days. And it was only in that classroom.
And I know through our monitoring software through GoGuardian, teachers can actually lock specific access to their students' computers. They can grant access to only specific websites or documents. So that would be another way that within the classroom they could still have access to their computer device, but without having the ability to venture off to off-task activities.
So tell me how we're going to deal with mace. Mace is listed as a dangerous object, not a harmful weapon, right? And so, I mean, we see that a lot in our expulsion, in our packets, because it is illegal.
So last year we lowered mace to a level 3 violation, and if it's used, then it's an object as a weapon, and that would be a level 4. So if it's mere possession, we have students that walk to and from school. It's not okay. It's still illegal. And so we moved it down to a level 3, and we've not, to this date, had a repeat of mace that you have seen as a packet.
And a level 3 is not something that we give an EIA for.
Correct. And so those students
that's why we haven't seen it.
Correct. And we have not had a repeat offense, a repeat level 3 MACE offense.
Explain what a student administration, it's student admin conferences. It was on a couple different level 1s.
So the student admin conference is the formal conversation that occurs between the building administrator that's issuing the discipline and the student that's receiving the consequence. That is a process that should play out with every referral that is written, where the student is basically made aware of the accusation against them and given the opportunity to respond to those accusations prior to the discipline taking effect.
And what about a student or a admin student parent conference?
We have separate codes in the code of conduct for that. So a student admin conference is SAC according to our codes. Student parent admin conference, as you might guess, would be SPAC. And the reason that we broke it out like that is so that we could track individually by school and by the district how many of these types of meetings are taking place across our schools.
And our expectation is the parent is involved in any time a student is brought to an administrative office for a discipline event, whether they're a victim or an accused.
So will we have reentry conferences if after suspension?
We still do that. We maintain that.
Well, we stopped making sure that was happening at some point in time, but we're working on keeping that in place, I take it.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that not happening at a school. I'd like to know which school it's not happening.
There were some identifiable, there were things that went into the computer saying, oh, it's very difficult for this family. Well, the idea was that it was difficult, and so, but they had to be there to bring their student back so that there could be a conversation.
Mm-hmm. So the expectation is anytime a student is out of school suspended or overnight suspended, that parent reinstatement conference takes place. We are cognizant of some of our families' lack of transportation or medical illnesses and those kind of things. So when we are made aware through conversation via telephone that the parent cannot come in for some reason like that, oftentimes our administrators and in conjunction with our parent liaison teams will go and make house visits to conduct those meetings as well. But again, the expectation has not changed. The expectation is still that every out of school suspension and overnight suspension has a reinstatement conference.
Glad to hear that. And for our administration going to the home, I understand that for a medical situation, but I had a parent tell me when they had to come in and somebody else couldn't, they said the district could pay for an Uber and get the parent there, so that at least the parent had to come into the building with the student. Just a thought. Just I'm sharing what a parent said. While you're on acronyms, MTSS-I, MTSS-C, and MTSS-R. I didn't see the. Is there a code in here? There must be a cheat code.
We will update you with a new red line. Those are internal codes that we're going to remove from this red line, from the parent and family facing. Those are expectations and codes that we put in that when a student violates a code of conduct, they either have to refer to MTSS to review, revise a plan, an initial referral, or to create a plan. So that's what that's the I, the C, and R. That's not really, public facing.
But it's there, and I'm reading it, and I know, we're going to take that out of there. That's all. Yep. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just one quick clarity. So can a parent or an adult return the student to the school? At one time, it could just be an adult. It didn't have to be the parent.
So I know the schools work very hard in situations in which the parent cannot get there. If the parent has someone else that they can send to the school, we've accepted that as a reentry meeting, yes.
Okay.
Our goal is to get the student back to school and to talk with someone who was being responsible for that student about their conduct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our final item of the night is to preview our consent agenda. You can preview the items in board docs. Are there any questions for any specific items? Because there's a long list. Ms. Pearson?
Yes, so I thought there was the board doc was updated. Was there originally information in the board doc regarding the demographer information? I received an email.
So our annual enrollment analysis will be coming in March as a superintendent update. But I don't believe that was on the agenda.
It wasn't on the original board doc regarding the demographer information that would affect McIntosh?
That was approved last month, Ms. Pearson.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me make this statement really quick here. So we've already understood that we approved the IB, the demographer. After we approved the IB, the demographer came in. And just recently, if we go back, we had a parent express concern about his child getting struck by another student who have special needs. And we've had parents come and express her concern regarding her child running out of the school. And apparently that has happened more than once. So I understand that everything is in place, but it's really important for us to understand that McIntosh is already on life support. And to increase the number of students and they're short staffed with high needs students, I can't stress enough how we did not give this enough attention, because we are now sacrificing McIntosh for a possible success of another school. And I think as a board, we did not give McIntosh, do McIntosh justice where it relates to how this would impact them. So it was said that we know that that the boundaries would have to change in order to make this happen, but I have reason to believe that there was conversation and information provided prior to McIntosh being brought into the picture. So I'm stressing this so we can be very careful how we populate McIntosh, because with the recent complaints that we've had, we don't want something catastrophic or a tragedy increasing our liability, because it looked like that they had the physical space to have an influx of students. So it's important that I stress that so we can keep an eye on the well-being of McIntosh as we promote and continue on with the IB. Thank you.
Ms. McCulloch?
So, Mr. Phillips, the Constellation New Energy Utilities, it looks like we're going from 11 to 14.7 for the...
Correct.
Okay. And the length of this, I mean, how will this dovetail with our solar?
So the length of the electricity contract will be 36 months, but it's based off of what our usage will be, taking out what our anticipated forefront usage will be from our solar arrays that will be installed.
Okay. Other ones on here, there's a lot. Dr. Reed, you have one where you're bringing in, is it Vandam? Where did I? The Valbrum Consulting Group, because we need additional DIA director or whatever. What? Can you just tell us what they're going to provide? DEI, sorry. Yeah. This contract for $50,000 for...
That
would be our new equity consultant partnership that we're going to work with. We replaced the last one because we wanted to see some actual data and things that the equity partnership would lend to our district. Their main focus is staff belonging and attendance that correlates with that. So while we're building out these parent teams and these student teams, they're going to be partners parallel with that work and continue to help us thrive in that area and arena. So this new consultant is going to be a little different, where you're going to see data associated to some of the moves and decisions. They also train our principals on creating equity spaces and how to start a school year effectively. So they bring a lot to the table. They have years of experience. They worked in multiple districts similar to ours. And one of the things I like a lot about them is they really focus on how to start a school year in an equitable manner that carries over throughout the school year.
Love it. And so you say they, is there going to be an individual assigned to our district that you'll be working with for this, or is
yes, so Valbrun has a group that they will begin to assign to us. As one person that leads the Valbrun consultant. They worked with school district in Brandon, so they kind of find the targeted people that will work directly with us based on what we identify as our needs. We have a lot of principals that we're likely going to use with them, so they're looking to get us 5 to 7 people that will be at our disposal to work with our principals throughout the school year.
Is that face-to-face, or is this just all done?
Both. Some virtual touch points, a few in-person touch points, summer PL. They're going to do a lot of different things that we need for our district as it relates to equity and student and staff belonging.
Okay. Thank you for that. We have 2 instructional resources that are on here. I don't know. One, it's also in the superintendent's update, and that is the Open Science Ed for Science, or Open Sci-Ed for Science 6th through 8th. It's a new educational resource. It says they'll adopt the Sky. Have we done any sort of preview of this in the schools? Pilot? I couldn't think of the word.
Yes, we have. We've had some of our middle school teachers field testing some of their units of study after they went through a 4-day intensive training last summer. Those teachers are our curriculum implementation leaders, and so they've worked with the dean to recommend an adoption of the framework, which is an open educational resource, meaning it's cost-free for the district for the curriculum. And then what you're approving is the cost of the supporting materials so that students can experience hands-on learning in lab environments. And that's from Carolina Supply.
Okay. Is this it's a whole new curriculum for the students, though?
It is a whole new curriculum, correct. It's a scope and sequence of their learning.
But did you answer the question? I'm sorry, I missed it. Did we pilot it in any of our buildings?
Yes.
And which ones?
Oh, I don't have that in front of me, but they were our CILs.
And then the co-writer, snap and read, is that just an additional? How does that interface with what we're doing for reading?
It's an accessibility tool. So essentially it supports students who may need additional help with text predictability as they're writing or with reading something aloud to them. So it was initially purchased from our special education department, meant as an accessibility tool for students with disabilities. We found there was a lot of utility for language learners, and then just across the general education population, we actually had a training strategy where we inserted our assistive tech folks right within the classroom and taught students directly, not necessarily relying only on a teacher to know and then share that tool. And what our data showed us is that it was no longer responsible to have just the special education department fund it, because a lot of our use was coming from general education students who were using it when they needed it throughout the course of their learning day. So the cost in front of you is split between bilingual and curriculum.
You look like you have a question, David.
Were these adaptive tools being used by general ed students because they happened to be there, or was there some real intentional, like, oh, these things are going to be great for these kids, so let's pull these devices in?
I don't know. I have not necessarily interviewed students to ask them that question and what their experience has been, but our data showed that across the instructional day, primarily gen ed students and language learners were using the tools in addition to our students with disabilities.
Okay, I get that they were using them, but did somebody say that this was a good idea, and do we have data to back up that it was a good idea?
Having accessibility tools or having them within the student's reach as they need them?
Using them for our gen ed students. Was this was it determined that this was going to be our ideal addition to helping students with reading, or how? I'm assuming that's why they're being used.
Yeah, it's essentially, it's another tool for students to have at their disposal for help on their devices when they need it. These are not tools, unless you have an accommodation in your IEP, you're not using them on assessments, for example. This is just making your way through your daily work, and it's a tool that's available for students, and so we want to teach them how to use accessibility features and then access them when they need them. So is it a good idea to have tools for students to be able to modify for themselves? Yes, it is. And most of our modern technology, we all have accessibility features on our devices that we can turn on and off when we need them based on what we know that we need.
I understand that, and when I do use those features, it's, you know, I certainly have the choice not to, and, you know, and the ability to. I'm just trying to figure out, were these devices being used by gen ed students because there was like someone had the idea, oh, this is going to be a great tool for these kids, because that's different than they're just using them. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? And do we have data to show that they're using these devices has been helpful?
I don't think that I definitely do not have an answer to your question in terms of, do I have the data that shows this has been helpful and it's reached the X outcome because we've used these tools? I don't have that data. What I do have is usage metrics. I don't have them with me tonight, but I can certainly provide them if you're interested in them prior to voting.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thank you.
Do we have any teacher feedback regarding the added tools?
Ms. Lawrence, are you aware of any teacher feedback on the tools from your experience with them? Yeah.
In general, not with this product, but in general,
I do not.
Thank you.
I'll go on with my list here. F&G, the Wellness Center, and the grounds and mowing. If you would like to consider this a first reading, there is absolutely no information under either of those administrative summaries.
I can speak to the mowing and grounds and mowing services contract. That was a 3-year contract that was up for RFP. That is for, we've broken down across the district our mowing into blocks. We've also created a new block which is focused specifically on our athletic fields from high school and middle school. And then lastly, we've increased work within our landscape beds to ensure that our front porch aesthetics across the district is improved.
So that's all great, but there's nothing in here about what we're going to be voting on in terms of who we're accepting from what bid.
That's not how it works with bids. With bids, we just put the placeholder in, and then you have a chance to review the bid one time.
Okay, well, they were supposed to be opened on the 16th of February, so that's why I thought we would have it for being here. Okay, and the Wellness Center, that was opened on the 9th of February, a month ago. So do we have anything on that?
Yes, so we'll be bringing that forward next week at the actual board meeting. So we finished our process this last week, finished scoring, and then we'll be presenting the board with our recommendation for our partner for our RPS Wellness Centers.
So when these are delayed, Mrs. McCulloch, it's because there's still analysis and scoring going on. So we're not holding back any information or failing to put it on.
I didn't think you were. I just thought if we were calling this the first reading, we're not reading anything.
But remember, these are not done in 2 readings.
Consent.
Right.
Correct. Then, thank you. And then the last one, I don't know if board members had a chance just to peek at the fees. It's... Especially, I appreciate, I wanted to give a shout out, the comparison to the other school districts in the area and what they're charging for that we're not charging for, and not charging for and not charging for. So, so if you have a chance to look at that, thank you. Thanks for, it's a lot of stuff in one meeting.
Any other questions? That would conclude my report.
All right. Well, Mr. Rollins is not here to lead the Planning and Development Committee, so I'm going to step up. We have a couple of things that we need to cover, and as we said earlier, we will...
Or President McCulloch, can I also request that we use 6D, the Facilities Master Plan presentation, as part of the superintendent's update on either the 14th or the 28th?
I'm sure nobody would argue.
We're well into the evening, and I thought that I would like that report to get the full attention of the board.
That it deserves, absolutely. Okay, so we'll go to increases in continuous public office bond and payment of premium. So the current Illinois statute requires the district treasurer to be bonded for an amount equal to at least 25% of all bonds, notes, mortgages, monies, and effects of which the treasurer is to have custody at any one time. Such bond must be approved annually by a majority of the Board of Education and filed with the regional superintendent. Administration needs to increase the continuous public official bond an additional $10 million effective April 1st, 2023. The treasurer's bond needs to be increased from $80 million to $90 million for the remainder of the fiscal year 23 due to fluctuations related to expected revenue inflows from ARPA-ESSER payments and CPPRT. Mr. Brown is here. Dr. Brown.
Yep. So this really relates to what we talked about when we had the budget update earlier. Right. We are expecting a pretty big increase in corporate personal property replacement tax revenue, and we need that additional $10 million of coverage on the treasurer's bond to cover those anticipated receipts. So that's simply what we're getting the increase for.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, second on there is the IB curriculum resources reading, which is Amplify Learning. In Illinois, our IB requires the curriculum that supports a transdisciplinary approach to teaching and learning. Instructional resources need to be able to be integrated in nature and to align to the 6 IB themes of instruction for K through 5. Additionally, the IB School of Conklin will have a transitional bilingual program with a 50-50 program model. That being the case, the special program requires a curriculum that is equivalent and of equal quality in Spanish and English. Amplify, which the CKLA and Caminos, is a K through 5 program. In K through 2, the focus is developing fluent reading and writing skills, enhancing language comprehension by building background knowledge and vocabulary. This is accomplished through 2 strands, the skills strand and the knowledge strand. The content integrates a variety of topics in history, science, literature, and the arts. The recommended solution is to contract with Amplify for curriculum resources and professional development needs. Current math data at Conklin on MAP and IAR show a need for targeted change regarding Tier 1 instruction. Sarah is here? Not? Okay.
She is not here.
Okay, so I was darn hoping to meet her. She presented like two meetings ago. I'm sorry. Anyways, I guess Heidi will take questions if you have them. Okay, that'll also come to us at the March 4th meeting, as will the bond premium. Well, and then the budget requests we're going to do, we'll decide, Dr. Jarrett.
Yes, I've asked
over the next 2 meetings, we'll figure
Dr.
that out.
Brown to divide that in half.
Yep.
He has a recommendation to Mrs. Brom, and the facilities master plan, typically the third meeting is a little bit shorter than the second meeting, so I will ask Mrs. Brom to add the facilities master plan to the superintendent's update that evening, and that will be that space will be shared with our student SSAC report as well.
Thank you. The outstanding budgets that we'll be hearing in April are operations, nutrition services, transportation, and our ED team at the committee of the whole. Hopefully we'll get those in during that meeting. Our next item is the proposed meeting schedules presented by Dr. Jarrett.
Any questions? Rather than reviewing them, I just did want to highlight that the big change really is you're not only seeing proposed meeting and committee of the whole schedules, but we've also put in place potential retreat dates as well in advance. And note that we did consider adding a stakeholders retreat, which I think is missing, and an opportunity for the board to dive into that, which I suggested would be in that February-March timeframe. I believe we decided to settle in one of those, and happy to take any feedback from board members before we finalize the
Would anybody have a problem with them adding that date for that?
I certainly did.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, we'll come back together.
Well, I think that you should put it on there, and that when we come to vote on that next week, if anybody doesn't want to have that meeting on there, they can pull it, and we can have a conversation about it then. How about that?
Thank you.
All right. Governance. I think that completes planning and development, so we would go on to governance. And so the first thing we have is the gift of property. Property is the former drive-up bank location from BMO Harris Bank. The district will enter into contract with First Midwest Properties to complete the demolition of the building for a not-to-exceed cost of $85,000. And the gift is from Sunil Puri. And what is it? 2018 DT Rockford LLC. Any questions on that? Seeing none. Extended instructional programs. This is a policy revision reflecting the Illinois law, as well as the current practice allowing credit recovery programs. The statutory provision related to anti-bias education and intergroup conflict resolution has been in the Illinois school code, since 2002. The reference to anti-bias was added for clarity and is quoted from the statute. The objective of such a program is to improve the intergroup relations on and beyond the school campus, diffusing intergroup tensions, and promoting peaceful resolution of conflict. With respect to the addition of vocational training and career education programs, the Illinois School Code allows districts to enter joint agreements with community college districts and other school districts to provide career education or advanced vocational training to students in grade 11 and higher to prepare for a trade. Any questions on that one? I know Ms. Goldsmith's just chomping it. Answer. Okay, seeing none. We added the item discussion of superintendent's update with regard to consent items. We'll come back to those. I did ask Ms. Detman, because I had a question from Mr. Rounds, who's not here to ask it, about the secondary grading practices. And so instead of asking a question, I asked Ms. Detman if she would just give us a verbal update so that you could ask questions if you had them on what we're doing with and what is actually happening with the secondary grading practices.
So I will make this as
brief and succinct as possible. Last week in the update, you had 2 documents. The first document looked like this. This is called the Secondary Grading Practices Foundational Philosophy. There was a group of roughly 25 people, a mixture of central office staff, school administrators, and teacher leaders who came together multiple times during last school year to debate, have dialogue, engage in case studies, look at what other districts are doing, read articles, etc., and really kind of grapple with where are we post-COVID in the inconsistency across the district in our grading practices. And so that was their job. Their job was a design team to come up with a foundational philosophy. That is captured in this paper here, and on the last page are all of the articles that they've referenced throughout. That then came back to instructional council, who authorized the group to do their work and had checkpoints throughout the year as they did their work. That came to instructional council last June. It was debated a lot over multiple meetings. We met over the summer so that we could continue our conversation. The charge from instructional council was take this guiding document and create something that is usable for school teams to lead this work in their individual schools. And so under the guidance of Principal Carter from Guilford High School, who took the lead on our subcommittee, as well as some of our internal administrative staff, we created the second document that's in your board update, which is it's a tool. It's a self-assessment. It walks through the 3 major shifts that are in the first column all the way to the left, and then what those shifts look like from beginning to advanced steps, and those go from red to green to blue. We're using this tool to go on a school-by-school tour and center the principal as the leader of this conversation. Our central office staff are there to listen and support and observe and answer questions, but the principal is centered as the leader, along with their assistant principals and their curriculum implementation leaders, or CILs. We have 3 of these visits left. We have Eisenhower, Flynn, and Jefferson. So we've been to several schools already, and we are there to listen as they rate themselves on the self-assessment tool, and then they make plans for what's going to happen next in preparation for the start of the next academic year so that they can be on their way to consistency.
So this isn't the... I'm sorry. So this isn't the end game. This is just a tool that they're using to determine where they're going to go. And then the next step is, after you finish all of the schools, to sit down again and come up with what you feel are the beginning, the intermediate.
Our next step is to come back and say, what did we hear? What are some themes and patterns? Are there even greater inconsistencies or different approaches that we can learn from one school to share with another? So we're coming back and asking, what do we need to support district-wide? Where do we need to be more clear? And then how can we support each individual school with their next steps, either through professional learning or through stronger guiding language?
Okay. No lights on, no questions. The last one is, and the board has asked for this repeatedly over the last couple months, is elementary expulsion and academic instruction. If you had a chance to read through that. At one point in time, I thought that we were told that there would be face-to-face with students, but it appears that it will be all remote. And will the support services at 2 hours per week all be remote as well, or by phone or whatever? Are people going to go to the homes?
I believe these are all virtual. Yes.
So what was the determining factor? Because the way it was presented, that it was like you were really positive about there being instructional, a piece to it, and what happened?
We were worried about transportation and availability for families. That was one concern. And initially, you're right, we did say we were working on trying to make some in-person time, and questions about transportation, availability, et cetera, came up, and we determined to do everything virtually. However, of course, this is under your guidance, so if you'd like us to take that back as a part of our proposal, we can certainly do that.
Will you please take it back, and perhaps we can check into other source of transportation, should that be the case. I think that it's vital. We already know what virtual learning did to our students. And so I think that puts the students in a situation of not being successful. So we can put a little more effort into checking into those other dynamics would be appreciated.
And just so that I'm clear, you're wanting to have in-person support for the case management and system support aspect?
For the learning?
There's two parts to this. There's the learning part, and then there's the systems management, which is where people will give resources and support and check attendance and do all those kind of things. So are you looking, and as a board, we need to give this, say what we want as a group. So what you're looking for is at both academic and?
That is correct, both.
There is not an option for in-person academics for elementary students. Our option is really virtual. If we were to go with in-person, it would be at a very reduced number of hours and only outside the school day. The Calvert Learning allows the students to be a part of an entire class and have live instruction with a certified teacher. So I think maybe we could maybe discuss that a little bit further.
Okay, so again, how it was presented, I was thinking that the student would have a live teacher. So if it's one or the other, if I'm understanding you correctly, then I would support the teacher.
Ms. Hoadley.
All right, so under the law, if a student is expelled, the only time that the district could provide educational services is if they are special ed eligible, and then it's only to meet their individualized educational plan services. So that is in large part why we really rely on the EIAs for the elementary students, and why it's very rare that an elementary student is actually expelled. So the board had asked us to consider or to identify other options for an expelled student, an expelled elementary student, which means we can't provide those services. And that's why they did identify this option, which is a virtual option. But again, it's very rare that the board actually expels an elementary student, and it's very rare that an elementary principal asks the board to do so.
But we have had a couple of this year.
Yes.
So that's why this has come up.
The number has yet to exceed 6, I believe, is the max we've done, or 5. Okay, so what I think so Ms. Pearson, what I think we can do is talk about ways to provide some kind of in-person check-in or support or face-to-face, but there really is not a non-virtual or in-person offering for this age level of students like we have for middle school and high school. So I think what we would be suggesting is that we would work with the board to find ways to provide in-person support in some way, but what we are recommending is a virtual option for the academics, and I would propose that we would come back with some kind of in-person support in some way, whether it's social work support or, and again, I don't know, we have limitations on what we can do with an expulsion, but I hear you loud and clear that you would not want this to be an exclusively virtual situation, and we should come up with some alternative to that.
That is correct. Specifically given the fact of how it was presented. And I understand that this is not typically common, but we should definitely have something in place, and maybe we should take a look at some policies where it affects the learning of our students that don't have IEPs, because unless it's been updated or removed, because board docs for some reason look different. It was my understanding that just because it was law did not mean we couldn't, there was an area for some discretion, for the superintendent to make some discretion. So
there are no in-person providers for elementary age students in our area. So in-person is not an option for their core academics. However, at the beginning, when we were asked to explore this, this process, we did bring forward the idea of in-person case management for a couple of hours a week, so that on a weekly basis, someone is making face-to-face contact with the family and the student. I also want to reiterate that between the learning platform, which is Calvert Learning, there will be an administrator who's in charge of monitoring that student's progress and attendance and communicating back and forth with teachers. That's part of the teacher, in Calvert Learning. That's part of their case management and system support, is maintaining a touch point on their progress every week.
So there's no virtual teacher.
There is a virtual teacher, and they are teaching live, and they are teaching an entire class. Our student would be a part of that class.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. With regard to consent items, I'm going to draw your attention to item 10D, the Memorandum of Understanding between the REA and the district. The MOU addresses compensation for teachers within self-contained programming. Specifically, eligible secondary special education teachers assigned to designated self-contained classrooms will be paid $3,000 each semester. And eligible elementary special education teachers assigned to designated self-contained classrooms will be paid $2,000 each trimester. Are there any questions? So 3 trimesters, they'll get $6,000. 2 semesters, they'll get $6,000. So it comes out the same. Any questions regarding that? Okay. And so this isn't an assignment. This is just they get it. We're having that hard of a time just filling those, correct, Mr. Setker? Okay. Any other questions about consent items? No. We are at petitions and communications, and we have no speakers. Does anybody have any comments or agenda recommendations? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. We are adjourned at 8:53.